I feel like we should not be comparing IBS to being turned into a horse. And this is where I got so excited because I said, there's shenanigans afoot. I love shenanigans. Hey, my name is Kaylee. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. This is Read, Rant, Review, where, you guessed it, I read books and I do rant reviews. I give you a beat by beat, chapter by chapter breakdown of a book that you guys voted for, and we have been on quite the monster romance roll. This week we're going to be covering the book Behooved by M. Stevenson. I know you've seen the cover, and I know you little freaks have been wondering what the heck this book is about, so we're going to go over that today. Like I said, we'll do it real in depth. We're going to crack a couple jokes, have a good time. I'm going to do my makeup while telling you all about it, and yeah, it'll be great. So I'm going to give you a couple disclaimers and then we'll dive right in. So the first disclaimer is that obviously this is going to contain all of the spoilers. So if you do actually want to read this, go ahead and do so first and then come back around and have a laugh with me. The second disclaimer being this review is not for the author. It's not for friends, fans, family, stans, anything of the like. I will be openly making fun of this book as we go through it. I didn't have a terrible time with it. It's not a bad book by any stretch of the imagination, but I crack jokes on the internet for a living, so like, get lost. You know what I mean? If you're gonna be weird about it. Point being, don't make it weird. I will block you. I'm not afraid of the button. You know what I'm saying? So, and then the third and final disclaimer, in terms of content or trigger warnings, there is not one supplied by the author, but a little bit of Google, a little bit of Romance.io. I think the only things to really give you a heads up on is there is mention of a chronic illness, and I'm not laughing at that. You'll understand in a little bit. So chronic illness, there is some like difficult family dynamics. There's not any like outright abuse, but maybe some like child neglect and favoritism between children, and then like just general emotional distress. I mean, if you don't know what this book is, I'll read you the book description here in a minute, and that'll tell you anything else that you need to know. But overall, there's really nothing dark, like super uber dark, that I can think of that happens in the book. If we come across something like that, I will give you a heads up if and when we get to that point. But off the top of my head, this was like objectively a pretty light read. So the book description. Okay, I don't think you're ready for this. Bianca knows her duty comes before her heart, so when the threat of war looms, she agrees to marry the neighboring kingdom's heir. But not all royal weddings are fairy tale, and Prince Eric, Bianca's betrothed, is cold, aloof, and seems to hate her on sight. To make matters worse, on their wedding night, an assassination attempt goes awry, leaving Eric magically transformed into a horse. Bianca does what any bride in this situation would do. She mounts her new husband and rides away to safety. Sunset returns Eric to human form, but they soon discover the assassination attempt is part of a larger plot against the throne. Worse, Bianca has now been framed for Eric's murder, and she's now saddled with a husband who is a horse by day and a frustratingly attractive man by night. As an unexpected romance begins galloping away with their hearts, Bianca and Eric must rely on each other to unravel the curse and save the throne. 352 pages, published on May 20th, 2025. So this book very recently came out. On Goodreads, it's currently sitting at a 371 with only 2,000 ratings. But from what my friends have told me and the pictures that I've seen of Barnes & Noble, I think they're planning on this being the next big old hit. So, hey, you're getting in early about what this insanity is, okay? And it's not what you expect. I know you little freaks in my audience wanted something different. This is not at all what you're expecting it to be. Literally not at all. Our first chapter opens and we are introduced to our main female character, Bianca. She is, I want to say, like 25. If not, she's definitely in her like mid to late 20s. So for political and geographic context of what we're dealing with, there's two countries. There's Gildheim, which is like the northern country on the other side of this mountain range. And then there's the southern country, which is where she's from, Damaria. And she being Bianca, our main female character. And she's from Damaria. She is from one of these like kind of quote unquote royal families. At this point in the book, the queen of Gildheim, right, the country up north, who is still a monarchy. So the country up north gets judged incredibly hard for still being a monarchy, for the way that they deal with magic, for the way that they handle some other things. They're really just looked down upon in general. And so, very recently, the queen of the north died suddenly. And Bianca is called to her parents' chambers to have a discussion. Bianca is the youngest of two girls. Her older sister has magic abilities and is talented and all of these other things. And Bianca has always felt a little bit like the reject daughter, or like this kind of second-class citizen, because she's not necessarily in line to take over for the family. She doesn't have magical abilities, and she has a chronic illness, which is never named specifically in the book. And through the entire book, I thought it was like IBS is how it is like talked about. But at the very end, in the author's note, this isn't like a spoiler or anything, it just provides some additional context. The author has celiac disease and is like representing it because clearly somebody in history had to have had this before. And so the author was like, yeah, I was just kind of imagining what life in this like era would have been like for somebody that had a chronic illness like me, which I thought was really, really cool. Like, that's a really interesting like representation to provide for a book like this. So anyway, she, however, feels like her parents disrespect her, or like her parents don't have any respect for her because of this illness that she has, because she has to like leave these parties and these balls like way ahead of time, and she can't, you know, always be available to do all these things and represent the family properly. And she's not like living up to her duty, but her duty is the only thing that she can provide her family because she doesn't have the magical ability and this other stuff. She just truly and genuinely feels less than. And when she gets called to her parents' chambers on this particular day and they tell her about the queen dying, they also tell her that the replacement, the queen's, you know, secretive, wily, grumpy, cold son that nobody ever really hears of, he immediately took the throne and started sending out threats, threatening war, sending out all of these demands. He wants to like increase this like lumber trade and these other things because, again, they're kind of the wild, quote unquote. So they have all of the lumber and the like resources that they sell to this industrialized country of the South. And so they're like, yeah, you know, he's like forcing us to buy more and more wood from them and fish and blah, blah, blah. And in the very, very last demand that he has is to have a noble hand in marriage. And so her parents are pretty much like volunteering her that she's the one that's going to have to do it because they don't want to send the other daughter away. And low key, what is really happening is her illness is taking note of. Like, people in Demaria are starting to realize that she's like skipping out on like one too many events. And if she stays and marries a local guy, they're definitely going to figure out what's wrong with her. And her parents are incredibly embarrassed of this. And they're going to be viewed as weak and like not able to fulfill their duties and like all this other bullshit. And so she realizes, oh, they're just trying to get rid of me because it doesn't matter if I have an illness up there. If I don't reveal it immediately and he marries me and then I'm just somebody else's problem, like they're just trying to sell me off because they're embarrassed of me. And it's so incredibly crappy. And she goes along with it because she has like some of the worst self-esteem that I have seen written in a book, like to a very annoying point. And this was one of the points where you could tell that this book was written by, I don't want to say inexperienced because that sounds really, really rude. I just don't know if this book had necessarily the right editors, or like if this was it's not self-published because I think Tor published it, but I don't think this book had the proper amount of editing done to it because they repeated the same sentences, I crap you not, like 30 times. The amount that she says, my condition, oh my God, but my condition. I got it. I promise you I understand. And that was just one example. There was like a whole bunch of other ones where I was like, good God, woman, shut up. I get it. Girl, get up. So she, obviously she's like, okay, I'll fulfill my duty because, again, she's like, that's all I have to offer my parents. I don't have skill or talent or magic that I can give them, and I'm not the oldest daughter to take over, so the only thing I can do is to give my hand in marriage so that my parents will be proud of me. Okay, girl, you're leaving next week. She has 1 week notice to get her stuff together, to get the heck out of here and go to Gildenheim, I don't know, the place up north. But in chapter 2, we are introduced to Julieta, who is Grace's apothecary. So because of her chronic illness and whatnot, Julieta makes her these like tonics for her to take, essentially like shots of, and it's honey and a couple other things in there that help like calm and soothe her stomach. It doesn't make the flare-ups go away necessarily, but it makes her feel significantly better. And so in addition to the whole apothecary gig that Julieta has, she also like helps her do her hair and get her dressed and keeps her company. And Julieta has honestly been much more of a mother than Bianca's own mother. So they're incredibly close. Julieta, of course, agrees that she will go to this, you know, wild country with her. And they start getting ready for bed. She starts, you know, getting her hair taken out and get her hair brushed and everything. And then all of a sudden, her older sister, Tatiana, comes in, busts through the door, and she says, "Hey, what the F? Why didn't you tell me that you're getting married to some guy and moving away? Like, what the heck is that all about?" And we learn a little bit about their sisterly dynamic, which is mostly Tatiana being the overachiever, you know, nerdy, incredibly smart, obsessed with magic, like how always has her nose in a book, and like super, super talented sister. And also obviously the favored sister by the parents. And so they just have like completely different life experiences and have always fought so much because their parents have like inherently pitted them against each other for so long. But they do love each other very, very much. And she's very, very upset that her sister is leaving her. It's the first time that they're going to be apart in such a way. And Tatiana gives her crap for only caring about her duty and like fulfilling her duty. And she's like, "I can't believe that you're literally giving up your life to make our parents happy. Like our parents who don't even care about us, you're just giving up everything to do this for them." Like that's, she calls her B, little B, like little, like worker bee. Like it's a condescending nickname, but not an inaccurate one, if you know what I'm saying. So they get in a little bit of a tiff over this. Sorry, I forgot to open up my Arizona tea. So we're gonna do a little bit of ASMR for a moment. Hold. That was probably really loud. I'm sorry. So delicious. So they have a little bit of a tiff, if you will, right? They kind of argue about this. Her giving her crap about, you know, always doing what their parents want and like not ever doing something for herself. And she's like, "I don't think you understand. I'm literally nothing. I have nothing to offer anybody. Like this is all that I can do." Again, repeat. We get it. So that's our chapter. So chapter 2 ends with Tatiana saying, "Okay, well, if you are going to leave me and I don't have a choice and I can't talk you out of this, I'm going to give you your birthday present a little bit early then." Her birthday present is a locket that Tatiana has enchanted so that, or not enchanted, put a spell on so that in case, what's her name? Hello? Brianna? Bridget? Braxton? Wait, oh my God, Bianca. Okay. So in case Bianca ever gets attacked, she would be able to like pop this locket open, and the spell would happen and it would somehow incapacitate the said attacker. Tatiana does not expand on what exactly that means, what exactly that entails, or what, you know, whatever. She says, "Don't worry about it. Just if you ever need it, you got it right there, sis. Like, I got you." Okay? Heard, chef. No questions asked, I guess. She puts on this locket. The rest is history. We go into chapter 3. She boards the ship and she is taking this like long trek, 2-week voyage, sure, around the sea. I think it's through the sea. Again, I don't care. I read this a couple days ago and brain dumped it, so you're getting the real quick summary. She boards the ship. It's like a very, very long journey on this ship. She has Julieta. She has her own little mini army that's there to protect her. The leader of said army who is going to protect her is named Carmen. I say Carmen a lot in this next section, and I mean to say Catalina. I obviously was just talking and not looking at my notes. And her and Carmen had a little bit of a fling when they were like 15 years old. They grew up together, training and like working out and doing all of this stuff, and they were completely inseparable. And there was a point where they developed feelings for each other. You know, they had a little hidden smooches, you know, behind trees, and they had all these feelings, and they were gonna maybe take it a little bit further. But somebody, and this doesn't get revealed until much later, but like it doesn't matter to tell you now. I don't understand why they like had this so drawn out. Somebody had seen them kissing, told the king, not king and queen, but told her parents, and they were like, hey, you will marry somebody one day. Like, you are set up to marry, to make connections or to like build these relationships with other people. You can't be around like hooking up with all these common folk, because like we're setting you up to do these like big moves for the family. So we go back to this whole idea of duty for some godforsaken reason. And so after being like confronted in such a way by her parents, she cut it off with Carmen. And she said, hey, it's just not going to work, sorry. And has like actively avoided her for the last 10 years since this breakup. But Carmen is the one who volunteered to lead her like personal, army, to lead this like protection army service thing that's coming with her. And this is the first time that now they're being forced to talk to each other on this boat and have a conversation about everything that's going on. They kind of admit a little bit. It's mostly Carmen just saying like, hey, I'm here because I wanted to protect you. Like I moved on. I'm, engaged to be married to somebody else, but I just wanted to be here to make sure that you're safe because like I do care about you. And they have a little bit of kind of cutesy back and forth, a little tensiony, a little bad. And Bianca really puts her foot down that this was her choice and she, wants to do this. Like, yes, it's obviously for the family, but she's like, this is where I need to be and don't ask me about it again. My eyebrows are way too dark if you're watching visually. Don't look too close at those. That was a new pen. I didn't like it. The other thing that happens is a fly fish, a half fish, half bird, ends up jumping onto the ship, hits her in the face when she's like leaned over because she's getting seasick. And she's realizing that all of these creatures that she learned about growing up that she was told were mythical are actually real. So the magic and whatnot, like I had kind of mentioned earlier, is very, very contained and it's very limited who can do it. And if you're found to have be magical, which like you have like golden flecks in your eyes, if you have like magical abilities, you have to go through specific training for a very, very long time to hone it and to make sure that they're using it for pretty much like technology and like building stuff. Whereas up north, it's like wild magic that's not really regulated. And so she always thought that these fish and these, kind of mythical fairy tale creatures weren't real because how and why could they be? This is our first introduction to the fact that maybe the world isn't what she thinks it is. Did I say Catalina earlier about the girlfriend's name? I might have said Katrina. It's Catalina? Okay, I promise I'll get more professional, okay? I promise. So we go into chapter 4. She is arriving to Gildheim, and it's beautiful, it's old, and she's being greeted by, it almost looks like a whole army, like the whole army is out. And she kind of expected to have some type of greeting, right? Because it isn't just her arriving, it's also a little bit of flexing because, right, the king-to-be, the kid, the heir, made all of these threats. And so there's a little bit of flexing going on between these two countries because he's like, well, just know that this is what you're contending with, basically. That's why she rolled up with a little bit like low key of an army and also on their like nicest ship possible for the same reason. But for all of these military guys that are lined up here to like welcome and greet her, instead of a pistol and powder kit at one hip, they bore heavy sabers. I'd known firearms were uncommon in Gildheim since Demarian imports were their only source, but I hadn't realized that they were so scarce that even the castle guard didn't wear them. The reminder of Gildheim's backwardness should have been comforting, but somehow the lack of pistols only made the soldiers more imposing. So she's about to get off the ship. She is not being actively greeted by her betrothed. Her husband-to-be, he's like nowhere to be found, and so she just has to walk off this ship awkwardly into these like soldiers waiting, lineup thing that's going on. As she's walking down, like the little plank thing that connects the ship to the little harbor, the little dock thingy-majiggy. It's really, really steep, and she's wearing her like fanciest skirts because she wanted to impress. But immediately, as she's going down him, she's like, oh, this isn't too bad, actually. Like, she's holding him up, and she's like, oh, I can do this. Until she hears a little chariot. She hears a little chariot pull up. And when she looks up, she sees this beautifully handsome man pop out. And she's like, oh, this must be my my husband, this must be the guy. So she's like looking up, and she gives him a little bit of a wave, and immediately falls off the plank directly into the icy water below. She gets pulled out by 2 of his guards because all of hers are still on the ship and his are technically closer. She's impressed by how quick that they responded, but it's still incredibly embarrassing that she just like ate crap in front of all of these people. And she's like, I know they're going to be gossiping about me, and this is horrifying. Like, what an absolutely horrific first impression to have on my new husband. But what can you do when you're just an awkward little lady? They pull her out. He rushes over. He greets her. He says, oh my gosh, Duchess Liliana, that's her last name, are you okay? And she says, your majesty? No, your grace. I am Lord Varen of Gildheim, merely a humble courtier at your service. I've been sent to escort you to the castle. And so she is pissed. She's like, oh, I expected the king to greet me. He's like, he's an heir for 1, but for 2, he's a little occupied at the moment. So sorry, he sent me instead. Come on up. She is, again, just like incredibly embarrassed about everything that's happened. She's pissed off that he didn't show up because, like, WTF, you're going to sit here and require that you have a bride show up, and then you're literally not even going to be here to greet her. You're going to force my hand in marriage, make me drive this freezing boat. I'm going to fall in this cold water, and like, you're not even going to have the decency to show up to greet me. She's obviously incredibly upset about this, but they get in the little cart buggy thing and start heading toward the castle. I didn't know what game my intended was playing, but I was not a woman he could insult with impunity. I was her grace, Duchess Bianca Liliana, flower of the Demaria, ensign of my house. I was not some petitioner to be addressed at his leisure and granted the boon of his attention when he felt it convenient. I was the representative of the Council of 9. That's the name of like her government for the country. His future wife, his equal, and if Eric thought that he could insult me without consequence, I would soon show him otherwise. Just let him wait until our first private moment, and I would knock him off his high horse. The puns in this, like, are so atrocious. I would knock him off his high horse so hard he would never mount it again. He greatly anticipated meeting me. Well, I could say the same for myself. I really would make an impression on Eric, one that my betrothed would be certain not to forget. Okay, sassafras, let's hear it. Let's see it. I'm so excited. I want a little boss baddie. In chapter 5, they have a little bit of time before the ball, the greeting ball for her, and so she goes up to her room to get ready. She doesn't get a tour of the building. He doesn't greet her when they initially arrive. It's pretty much just like, yeah, he'll show up tonight and you can meet him there, which again just like adds more and more anger to her soul about this man, and just not very impressed at all whatsoever. She's impressed by the castle. She's impressed with the workers and with everybody that she's met thus far, but she is just not having it with her husband to be. So she goes to her quarters. She gets in here and she's looking around, right, admiring the beauty of the place. Again, this is a historically much colder area because it's much further up north than where she's from. So they already have the fire going, and she, notices these green, this kind of like green aura thing that's like emanating from the fireplace, like around the flames, and she doesn't know what she's looking at. She doesn't really know what's happening. Neither do we, and we won't learn it until the 50% point in the book for no reason. Like, there's no legitimate reason that it had to wait that long to get revealed other than, I don't know, to be cutesy. So I'm not going to tell you now. I'm going to make you wait as long as I had to, because I was getting pissed off. Because the whole green fire thing gets brought up like 4 times before it actually gets addressed, and I was really starting to think that it was never going to, and I was going to be really mad about it. Sorry, I had to finish my eye makeup off camera. We are back in business, baby. So the only other thing to really note that is in her room, she has her own private bathroom. She has this beautiful bed. There's a door that connects her to the king's chambers that is closed, and she's, kind of feeling anxious about it. But on the bedside table, a few volumes in the Demarian language were neatly stacked on the bureau's polished surface. My brows drew together as I read their titles. A History of Conflict on the Peninsula, Tales for Sleepless Children, and most confusingly, what appeared to be a pamphlet on Demarian fashion, almost 2 decades out of date. Clearly, they were intended to send some message, but its substance confused me. Did Eric mean to warn me with my own country's history of war? Suggest that I was childish? insult my fashion sense. Whatever he meant by the books, it did not bode well. And then just to note, right, Demarian, they speak different languages, like Demarian and Gildheim, they speak different languages. She's fluent in both of them. In general, I think she speaks like 9 of different languages or something, and so does he. She also notices that there is a flag that is hanging from the wall, and she kind of saw it throughout the castle. She was making her way through it, that depicts this woman on top of this white horse. And so when she gets greeted by what is essentially the like liaison from her country, right, the representative, the ambassador that, you know, stays at Gildheim full time and like writes them letters in Demaria and keeps them up to date on everything that's going on, and like vice versa and whatever. When he comes up to greet her, he's been living in Gildheim for 12 years. She asks him what the flag is. And he says, from one of the local folk tales, Your Grace, the story of the Lady of the Wilds. The Gildan people say that she was the first queen of this land, and she made a pact with the local deities who gave her the crown in exchange for a promise to protect the wild places. Such superstition is why Gildenheim refuses to open more iron mines or log the forests despite the immense potential for profit. Interesting, especially since those two things were specifically outlined in the treaty. I would have to ask Eric about this whenever he showed his face. So she was real, the lady? By all accounts, Your Grace, the woman was real. The legends, I'm sure Your Grace can draw your own conclusions. And this goes back to this idea that will be repeated through the book of what's actually folklore, or what is real that we're told is folklore outside of this country for reasons outside of our own knowledge. Other than the idea that like history is written by the victor, meaning that all of the great wars and whatnot that they had been in previously, her people had won. So obviously propaganda in her country will be supportive of them and kind of talking bad about others. Whatever, that's like a whole other thing though, right? Julieta helps her get ready for the ball. She looks gorgeous. She looks pretty. She's used to these. She has to do these all the time with like her family and everything. So she knows what to do. She can get through this. As she goes down there, all the crowd, you know, she gets announced as she goes through the door. Everybody turns their heads and looks at her, and a ripple went through the crowd, a scythe parting a field of wheat. Through the gap walked a man dressed in the dark gray of gilden mourning, a circlet resting on his golden hair. He stopped a sword's reach from me but did not bow. Our eyes locked, his cold blue of winter's sky. The air went static between us, like the feeling just before lightning strikes. I needed no introduction. I would have known this man even if I had not perused his portrait for hours on the journey from Demaria, reading meaning in every brushstroke. Eric of Gildenheim, heir apparent to the throne, my betrothed at last. In chapter 6, they finally meet. And the immediate thing is they go for a little dance. That's how they open up the ball, is they're the first ones to dance. It's very awkward. There's a lot of tension. It's very stiff. He's a good dancer, though, but she's very, like, grumpy about it and, like, slams her arm down on him, like, on his shoulder, like, real hard, and he's, like, gripping her side really hard, and it's just very strange. And so there's, like, some little curt greetings, and then it's awkward silence, and then all of a sudden he says, "Tell me," he said abruptly, "do you always wear a dagger in your sleeve?" I nearly missed a step of the waltz. The loose lines of my dress hid the weapon from sight, but he must feel the outline where my forearm rested on his shoulder. I'd practically ground it into him with my irritation. She says, "Not at all. I find that some dresses pair much better with a rapier. But that would interfere with dancing, don't you think?" Surprise flashed across his face, brief as lightning. For a moment he looked unbalanced, his facade cracking. Satisfaction settled in my chest, purring like a cat. "I see. I've heard your prowess with weapons." Wow, they're really challenging my pronunciation today. "Good God." And he says, "I hope you're not planning on using that dagger in the bedroom." I thought the bedchamber was exactly the place for, how do you say it? Swords? Twin spots of color flamed in Eric's cheeks. This word that I'd used, a less than courtly term, had other meanings besides the weaponry sense. My Gildan wasn't perfect, but like any young person learning a foreign language, I'd acquired as many lascivious phrases as possible early on. Okay, girl. So some of their banter is cute, and I will fully, wholly, totally admit this part. I did like some of their banter. A little bit of their relationship stuff was cutesy. That was one of the pros of the book. She confronts him yet again for not greeting her. He says, "A newly crowned king has much to attend," and she says, "As the humble courtier that you sent to greet me pointed out, you're not crowned yet." A muscle ticked in his jaw. "No, nor did I expect to be for many years. My mother's passing was untimely." "Oh, My anger ebbed towards empathy. The former queen had died barely a month ago. The somber gray of Eric's jacket was a reminder. Perhaps I ought to extend the man more leniency. As rude as he had been so far, people are never at their best when they're grieving. Assuming he actually was grieving and hadn't murdered the queen himself to take the throne as the rumors had suggested. After all, he'd wasted no time threatening war with his neighbors. My anger returned, bolstered with indignation. She asks when the coronation is. He says, "Aren't you eager to be a queen?" And she says, "Assuming the crown is part of the duties that I'm here to fulfill, unless you've changed your mind about our marriage." "I haven't," Eric said coldly. "Our wedding will take place tomorrow evening and the coronation on the spring equinox a week from now. You can tell your council I keep my promises, wife." Tomorrow? A shock slowed my steps, nearly making me tumble. She's like, "I thought I would have had more time to orient myself or for us to get to know each other. I don't understand why he's rushing this wedding so quickly. This is so weird." And the song ends and he says, "I'll let you dance with whoever you want to, whoever you feel like ingratiating yourself with for the remainder of the night. Welcome to Gildheim, Duchess Liliana." He turned on his heel and stalked away, the other dancers parting before him. I stared after him, anger simmering in my stomach. Beneath my anger, though, lurked a cold as deep as a northern winter night. I hadn't even been in Gildheim a full day. I'd spoken with Eric only a single dance, yet I was already certain of one terrible fact. My husband hated me. In chapter 7, she's going on about her dances with all of the different folks. The very first one is Lord Varen greeted her, right? And saw her at her worst when she fell off the freaking ship. He asks for a dance. They're vibing. They're having a good time. She's like, "Hey, sorry if this is rude, but are you related to the heir apparent? Because you guys look so much alike. There's a reason that I mixed you guys up." And he says, "I forgot you haven't been steeped in the gossip of this court. I am a bastard, your grace, born out of wedlock with nobody for a father before the late queen was married." With this being said, this is another point of difference, I guess, between the two cultures, between the two countries, because in Demaria, it doesn't really matter. They don't really look at titles and ranks in such a way, but in Gildheim, it's still very much a thing, right? We still have a whole monarch system going. We still have these ranking of individuals and the idea of a bastard not being able to take on the throne. You're not you're not you know what I mean? In line properly for the throne. Whereas in Demaria, it would just go to whoever the oldest child is. And there wasn't really this designation between them. So she's not confused necessarily, but it's just another cultural difference reminder. In the middle of their dance, she looks up to see Eric and he is leaning against the throne, right? So they're in the middle of this little dance floor. There's the, the little raised platform where the thrones are on, and he's leaning against it, reading a book, not paying attention to anybody, not mingling, not talking, not dancing, not even watching the crowd, literally just nose in a book. And next to him is this wall of a woman, as described, this dense but mighty warrior that is shooting her daggers, horrible daggers. She asks who this person is and why they're staring at her in such a way and why they're standing so close to the heir apparent, right? Why she's standing so close to Eric. And Varen reveals that this is Eric's partner, that they were lovers. And that's also that they were lovers, and also she's the leader of Eric's personal guard. Okay, interesting. So now she's even more confused because she's wait, if he has somebody that he loves, why am I here? Why did he want to marry somebody? Is he really seeking that type of political affiliation that he's willing to overlook somebody he loves to, do his duty and make his kingdom stronger and whatever? Or what kind of game is this? And if he thinks that I'm going to marry him and he's going to have affairs out of wedlock or affairs outside of our marriage, that's not cool. I can't believe blah, 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 right? Just sending her a little bit spiraling, the fact that he obviously has somebody that he's in love with or has a partner of some sort. Eric clearly resented me. He'd angered me too, it was true, but that was because he'd openly insulted me. I had ample reason to nurse a grudge. His outright coldness was a different breed of distaste. It made no sense to me. He was the one who demanded a treaty with Demaria. He was the reason that this match was arranged, and yet now I had arrived, he acted as if I were an imposition, as if I'd offended him when the offense was all on his part. I'd done nothing but perform my duty. And so after the ball that night, after all this dancing and everything crazy, she's back in her room and she can't sleep, and she's just thinking all this over. She's if he wanted a wife to begin with, Like, why would he want a wife to begin with if he already had a lover? Why rush into wedlock with somebody that he had never met before, even like before he had even been crowned? And it was a rush. Like, he couldn't even take a few days to get to know me. Like, it has to be like a power flex. Or maybe it didn't even matter who I was because he never intended to go through with the wedding in the first place. For the first time, I wondered if that had been his plan. Perhaps his intention all along had been to provoke war and lay claim as much as Demaria's assets as he could seize. It would explain his dislike for me. He never intended to marry me, yet I had shown up anyway, and now I was an obstacle. Fear rose in my throat as familiar as bile. I hadn't counted on this complication. What if my parents were right and I wasn't strong enough to see this through? And so now she's like, well, now I have to get married to him. Like, no matter what the cost is, I have to get married. I have to prove him wrong. I have to, like, do all this stuff for my family and, like, be, this whole X, Y, and Z thing. Which is actually a crazy concept. So, like, from her POV, in case it's unclear, her idea is that maybe he wrote, this, like, treaty or whatever in such a way that they would say no to it, and he actually wasn't expecting them to say yes. And then now that she's here, he's hoping that maybe he can scare her off. Like, if he's rude enough or it's a bad enough impression that she'll decide to not go through with the wedding, and then that'll invalidate the treaty, and then now he can go and, take whatever he wants and do whatever, and he has, like, not justification, but kind of, you know what I mean? So now she's like, well, screw that guy. My duty calls for my people. I must go through with it. And we cut to chapter 8. And we're already getting married, baby. We're 19% of the way through, and these folks are getting married. Turns out it's blood magic. It's not just a normal vows. No, it's about to go crazy. So this, like, witch lady, a green witch is what she's called, she comes in, has a bowl, has some other things, a little cup of wine, goes and greets them, and she says, Eric of Gildheim, Bianca Liliana of Demaria, do you both of you agree to this union of your own free volition without any prior ties? I lifted my chin, willing my voice to be steady. Yes. Both of us looked at Eric. His gaze flickered for an instant. Yes. He said, the word barely audible. Then, with the lady's blessing, you may recite your vows. They hold hands. He says, I, Eric of Gildheim, promise to take care of you as my wife. I swear to protect you, honor you, and stand by you, to hold you first and care for you as long as this union binds us. She recites the same thing back to him. I seal these vows with my blood. I seal these vows with my blood, he said. She says, huh? With your blood? And so after they're done saying their vows, the witch lady hands him a knife. He, like, pricks his finger, drops it into the wine glass, hands it to her. So now she pricks her finger and drops it in the wine glass, and they, like, shake it together, and then they both take drinks of it. And now they are blood magically bound. Like, now they share blood. That's crazy. That's crazy. And a shock buzzed through my veins, overriding the nausea of my flare, because she's starting to feel sick. Like, her, I always want to call it IBS, but her, like, you know what I mean? Her stomach issues are acting up. So, nausea over my flare. The fine hairs stood up along my arms. Whatever this spell was, it was cast on us, on me. I nearly knocked over the chalice. My eyes met Eric's over the vessel. By the grace of the lady, the dignitary proclaimed, you are now pledged in marriage. A roar of applause rose like distant thunder, shaking the room. It was done. A cut, a sip, a spell, and now, for better or worse, Eric and I were wed. In chapter 9, he's kind of holding her through it as she's, like, getting over the, like, rush of magic that has gone through her body for this, wedding spell thingy that's happening. And she immediately is, like, pissed off because she's like, I can't believe he wouldn't talk to me about anything that happened. He has completely avoided me. Like, through that whole day, they had a little bit of back and forth where, like, he was at breakfast and she didn't show up because she was having, like, stomach problems. And he never came to her room to talk to her before the wedding. She had asked him a question and he never responded, and just, like, nothing between the two, like, absolutely keeping distance from each other. And so she's like, he never said anything to me, and, like, he never told me what this ceremony would be like. Like, I can't believe this wasn't communicated. And I was like, if you knew you were gonna marry him, you had, like, 2 weeks to prepare, because they had, like, the week notice before she left, and then, like, the week on the ship, and then she's been here for 2 days. They have a liaison or an ambassador or whatever. Ambassador? What the hell was that, Kaylee? Hello? They have an ambassador? Can I say it without an accent? They have an ambassador. And so I'm like, why didn't you talk to that guy about it? I thought you read up on customs and like the culture of this country that you were moving to and you're about to be the queen of, and you didn't happen to stumble across anything talking about the blood magic ceremony? You didn't ask somebody? Like, girl, stop. You know what I mean? I said, okay, shut up. So they have, their wedding, and then now the real fun begins, where they have to sit there and be greeted by like every single person ever to come and congratulate them, which includes all of the ambassadors. I'm giving up. I don't know why that's such a weird word for me, which includes all of the ambassadors from all of the other countries, that they kind of allude to the fact that he also sent them a bunch of messages threatening war and to agree to these like new treaties and like trade exchanges between the countries, and are glad that, they're working it out. And she's like, that's kind of weird. I thought it was only Demaria. I didn't realize that he's like literally threatening like every surrounding area or like village and country and all these other people around us. Like that's kind of crazy. And then this one lady comes up and she says, Majesties, congratulations on your marriage. It's a delight to see a true courtier on the throne once more. This time I did glance at Eric, puzzled by the statement. Did she mean the throne had been empty since the late queen's death? But that couldn't be right, not to judge by the way Eric's hands had tightened again, a muscle in his jaw ticking. There was a current to her words too deep for me to read. And she doesn't know if maybe this is one of the people that the council's spies had told them about that has like been eyeballing the throne and like maybe had killed the queen to like overtake the throne, and then now with him taking it, it's kind of weird, right? So there's this like weird tension that she's feeling, and she's thinking that maybe that's why. But what can you do, right? So they press on. He's very sweet. He starts to realize that she's not feeling very well, and so he pushes a little cup of water toward her and tells her to drink it, and she's like, oh my God, he is paying attention to me. It's like really dumb. They get through the night, a little more dancing, more greetings, more everything, and it's finally time for bed and time to, consummate the marriage. She goes to her room, she puts on her little lingerie, she gets her hair down, working with Julieta to be this like, little pretty lady. When she goes into the king's chamber after she's done getting ready, knocks on the door, Eric's in there, doesn't even look at her, starts taking his clothes off, like just ripping them off, and he says, let's get this over with. Eric spoke in Gildan, his words curt and short. The harsh syllables of the language made it sound like a curse. That's enough, I snapped, answering him in my own tongue. My fists were clenched so tightly my nails bit into my palms. I will not be insulted like this. What more do you want? His voice was jagged with animosity. Do you want me on my knees, wife, on top of the rest of your demands? Do you now require my humiliation? My demands? My voice was rising, but I made no attempt to rein it in. What are you suggesting? You're the one who made all the demands. I've only done as you've asked, and in return, you've publicly insulted me. You've been insufferably rude, and now you're treating betting me like an ordeal as if it weren't what you wanted in the first place. Eric's face grew livid. You continue to mock me as if you don't know full well that this could never have been what I wanted. Oh my God. And so she feels this cruelty. It slices through her like a blade. She feels so small and embarrassed and terrible in this moment, and yet again, throws it back at him. Says, am I not good enough for you? I seethed. Well, husband, I'm sorry for your disappointment, but I will not apologize for being inadequate. If there was something in particular that you required in your future spouse, you should have had the foresight to name it before making your threats of war. Eric's eyes widened, and now he dared pretend to be surprised. His rudeness truly had no end. What are you talking about? Don't play innocent. You know exactly why I came here, at whose request, and at whose request. So tell me, your majesty, what exactly did you want? A fairer face? A fuller figure? What? You didn't seem to mind my figure when we danced. Is it that I have no magic? Duchess Liliana. So that's it. You wanted a pet to keep on a leash, and as you wreaked war against Bianca. The urgency of his words cut me short. Eric wasn't looking at me any longer. He was looking over my shoulder to the door that had flown silently open, in the black-clad figure racing toward us, blade glinting in their hand like a predator's fangs. Hello? Chapter 10. And we are finally getting to a point of like something actually happening. And I know the way I tell stories, and I know the way that I explain things. It sounds a little bit more interesting, but I can't explain to you how repetitive and almost like it's not paced very well. Like, this story is not paced very well, and you will especially understand that once we get to the end of this. The entirety of this book, all like 300 and whatever pages, occur over the course of 6 days. It took us 78 pages to get through 2 days. Like, that's what I'm saying about like nothing has happened. 2 days. Like, I hope that you understand that. Maybe 3 if you really want to like round it up and be nice about it. Because it was the day she found out, the day she arrived, and then now she's getting married today. Like, that is an obscene amount of pages for that like amount of time. Does that make sense? And then now we have over 200 more pages to get over the next 3 days. What do you mean? What do you mean? Actually, it's 6, but we'll get into that in a minute. But like, you still get my point here. Like, you still understand what I'm saying, where I was just like, ugh. So they're being attacked. Well, they're not really attacking her. This assailant is going after Eric. And she, being a good, dutiful wife, is intercepting the attack, going after this person. She's grabbing a pillowcase and she's like throwing herself in between them and like catching the blade and whatnot, because Eric, his fight or flight, homie's a pure freeze in that type of situation. And she's been trained to fight, right? So she's like going ham. She ends up, they don't really have any weapon. They break a lantern, but the lantern, like the glass shards are too thin for her to actually be able to use anything of it, but it ends up cutting up her hands really, really badly. And she's noting this like searing pain that she has from this broken glass. And she's like, I don't have any more weapons. There's nothing that I can do. This person is running back at us now, and like, I don't know what else to do. And she realizes she has the locket from Tatiana. So she grabs the locket, pops it open to like have the locket attack said intruder, said assassin. And at that exact moment, right, she's opening it, the assassin's coming at her. Eric comes out from behind her, and all of a sudden he grew a pair, and he says, no, and he says, don't, and like dives between her. The chamber exploded into blazing white light. The force of the spell threw me backwards onto the bed. The room spun sickeningly around me. Black sparks chased each other around the edges of my vision. Get up. I had to get up. The assassin could be anywhere, could be closing in on Eric at this exact instant, or deciding to come for me instead. I couldn't lie here in a daze, even if my vision was swimming. I gritted my teeth and I pushed myself up to my elbows, and I froze, bewildered. I was face to face with a large white horse. She looks up, and like the assailant has been like thrown, like the force of this threw them against the wall on their back, and they're like kind of huffing and puffing and stuff. And she's like, Eric, where are you? And the horse is like neighing at her and like trying to like hit her with its head and whatnot. And she's like, stop it, horse. I don't know how you got here. What is even happening? Eric, where are you? What's happening? Because the assailant is like starting to wake up. And then all of a sudden, get on my back. My mouth fell open. The voice had sounded inside of my head. Clear, oddly familiar, and though I couldn't have said how I knew, unmistakably, I knew it was coming from the horse. Shock was making me imagine things, because horses simply did not talk, especially not in my head. The horse stamped a foot against the floor with a resounding crack. Get on my back now before the both of us are killed. Practicality rushed back in. As unnerving as it was to be telepathically addressed by a magical materializing warhorse, the creature was right. I had to get out of here before the assassin recovered. Searching for Eric would only give our assailant time to kill us both. Uh-oh. And with that, my laptop is at 9%, so this might be, I might touch back tomorrow. Bye. What a note to leave on. Cliffhanger. Hey, long time no see. Not really, I guess, from your perspective, but for me, it is. And if you're watching visually, I am not in my usual comfy girl attire. I am, in fact, in my work clothes, because I mean business. Ew. No, honestly, I just like, I'm one of those people, like, if I take my shoes off when I get home, I will not be productive at all. Like, that's my like ADHD quote unquote hack, is I have specific house shoes that I have to put on if I want to do any chores on the weekend. Same vibe here. If I take off my work clothes, if I put on comfy clothes right now, I will not do anything productive. I will sit on my couch and play Pokemon all night long. So we're in business mode, baby. We're in business attire, and I'm going to get this knocked out as fast as possible so I can go and play Pokemon on the couch for the rest of the night. But for real. So I left you guys off on a crazy, crazy cliffhanger, I know. Dude turned into a horse. What the hell? Well, maybe. I guess maybe you don't know that yet. At least homegirl, whatever the heck her name is, she doesn't know it yet. Oh my God. What is her name? The way that I brain dump information after I finish reading these books is honestly like alarming. Hello? Oh my goodness. Okay, anyway, I'll find her name eventually. So she hops on his back, on the horse's back. It busts through the window, jumps out, 2 stories high. Good God. She thinks they are falling to their death. Luckily, everything is fine, and the horse just keeps on trotting along through the woods. As they're getting through the woods, bright white horse, by the way. Not sure if I said that earlier. Stark white, little flowy locks, super, super visible on this stormy night. Almost dawn hours. And so she's like, wow, this would actually be really freaking great if this horse was any other color, because it's so starkly contrasted in the forest. Anyway, they're going. Horse comes to a stop. And she's still talking to herself, not thinking that this is Eric. And she's like, Eric, I muttered, talking to myself, where in ocean's 100 names are you? The horse shifted beneath me, making me hastily tighten my grip on its mane, and then that voice sounded in my head again. Smooth, melodic, and undeniably annoyed. I'm right here. Now get off my back. My jaw went slack. I must have hit my head during the fight, for now the horse was not only talking, but doing so in a voice of the man that I had just married. Did you not hear me? Get off my back. The horse stamped a hoof. Earth splattered and shook itself, nearly unseating me again. Ugh, I despise mud. Eric, are you a horse? And Eric the horse is like, girl, what the frick do you think I am? Obviously, this is who I am. What do you think I look like? A chicken? Quite literally is what he says. And then he says, for the last time, get off my back, woman. She does. She slides off. They have this entire back and forth that ultimately they're like accusing the other one of hiring the assassin to come into the bedchamber to obviously like hurt the other one. Eric snorted, indignant. I would never assassinate my spouse in my bedchamber, even one who forced me to marry them. It would ruin the sheets. It would, I sputtered. Wait, what do you mean forced you to marry? A cacophony of bells broke out in the distance, cutting my protest short. An alarm. Someone had discovered the assassination attempt. Bum, bum, bum. So she hops back on the horse. They go trotting away, and she's like, where are you going? Oh my God, how are we ever gonna get away? Because, like, I guess they're, like, the castle walls are, like, up to the ocean. I, honest to God, don't understand the geography, the layout of the city. I don't understand what the problem is. We'll talk about it in, like, a chapter or two from now. I'm kind of confused, but they're going deeper and deeper and deeper into the woods, and he says, I know a place, baby. I got you. Okay. I mean, she don't really have a choice, right? And so in chapter 11, they're going through the trees. The trees have eyes, quite literally. They're like tree beings, which again were things of fairy tales of her people. This is another confirmation, reiteration, bias, whatever you would like to call it, of this quote unquote wild magic versus the refined magic of her people, where they have turned all of these tales into folklore instead of like actual history or actual happenings, if that makes sense. So just more indication that the way things are handled in their countries are entirely different. They come up to this abandoned, stable, decrepit building, and he says, okay, get off my back, like go inside, like shoo shoo. I looked at Eric skeptically. Won't it be obvious that we're hiding out here? He shook his head impatiently, tail flicking. To find this place, you must have been here first. More irregular magic, just what I needed. And we're assuming the assassin hasn't paid this charming abode a visit before. Only 3 people alive know that it's here, including you and me, and the third would never try to kill me. I ignored the implication. I hadn't arranged the assassination, whether he believed me or not. I had only his word that this unknown third party was equally innocent, but I didn't feel like arguing at that point. She gets into this hut, and I would just like to say, to find this place, you must have been here first, is a banger sentence and a banger idea. That is so freaking cool. I love that type of shit. I loved. Sorry, that was really aggressive. But I really did. I loved parts of this book so much. Like, this book had so much potential. We'll unpack it about like where I step away from my love for it, but there were definitely aspects of this book where I said, holy freaking crap. That idea right there is one of them. So she goes into this like shed thing. It's like the only escape for the royals now to like, you know, hide out at, for like the royal family to hide out at. It's where the like royal steeds used to be kept at. It's a whole thing. It's very decrepit. There's like water, there's like holes in the ceiling, and it's like dripping water, and everything's like so mildewy and musty and moldy and icky and gross. But he's been there. He's been there quite often, because there's one particular stall that has a couple crates of supplies in it. So she goes in there. It's the middle of winter, by the way. I don't know if I had said that or if that was apparent at any other point during this. They're way up north. It's wintertime. It's super uber cold. It might not even be wintertime. It's just cold. It's colder than she's ever known in Demaria. So they're both freezing their little tukuses off. She goes into one of the crates, opens it up. She grabs her little blankie. She pulls up into the like only spot where there's not any rain happening. He wiggles his way through the door. It's a really, really tight fit. He goes into one of the other stalls, like the only other one that's not all mildewy and gross. She gets a little blanket. She throws it at him. And then she's sitting there, and she looks down at her hands. Her hands that were cut up from the light, like the little light sconce, whatever the heck the name was in the bedroom that ended up breaking and had all the glass shards, and she was all bleedy bad. Her hands all of a sudden are healed. And in the place of these cuts that she had are golden scars. And it's the same thing on her fingertip when they did the blood magic ceremony and when they got married and they like pricked their finger to make the blood go in the little chalice thingy. That little spot is golden. And now her hands are golden. And she's kind of concerned about it, and she doesn't really know what's going on, and she doesn't want to say anything to Eric because he's kind of being a douche, for one, and for two, she can't really trust him quite yet. So she, you know, tucks her little hands in the blanket, and will keep that one a secret for later. They have this like entire back and forth, and it ends with him yet again accusing her of, is that why you sent an assassin into my bedchamber and transformed me into a horse? And she's like, A, I didn't do the first one, and B, I didn't mean to do the second one. So she says, this is not how I expected this unfolding. I've yet to grasp how exactly you did expect it to go after the assassination and the curse. What was the next stage of your plan? Also, as I told you, I had no plan. My only intention was to fulfill the terms of the treaty. And had I known how insufferably rude you would turn out to be, I would have insisted the council to renegotiate those terms. So you continued to deny orchestrating this marriage in the first place? I had nothing to do at all with arranging this marriage. I was selected by the Council of the Nine as the most suitable candidate to satisfy your thinly veiled threats of war. My threats? I never threatened Demaria. Your council was the one making the demands. What demands exactly do you think the council has made? Expanding the trade agreement, committing to an annual quota of purchases of adept, which is like magical, technology, increasing our lumber and iron exports, agreeing to wed a partner of the council's choice before the coronation without even meeting you first. Wait. The council didn't demand any of that. I didn't demand any of that. The insistence on the marriage was from you. Eric's nostrils flared. Why in lady's name would I insist on marriage? To make a statement as the new king to test your power by claiming a tithe from Demaria? You are a woman, not a tithe. Eric snorted. And I said, hold on, why is that kind of hot though? I said the bare minimum. I said the bar's in hell. Kind of hot. You are a woman, not a tithe. Eric snorted. And if I wanted a tithe, why would I demand to marry you? I had just been insulted again, but he didn't give me room to retaliate. I'm not even crowned yet. Why would my first move be to aggravate my closest neighbor with a list of demands that could easily spark war? And so she realizes she's putting some pieces together. It's all clicking into place, and she realizes, ooh, that actually doesn't make sense. Especially if the lore and everything that they promised their founder, right, the lady on the horse thing, that like these were all sacred grounds and they wouldn't be exporting all these things and they would protect the lumber and the mining industry. Why would he expand those trades? Like that doesn't make any sense. It's all kind of clicking, right? Everything's in her head now. And she says, but if neither of us asked for this marriage, who did? Girl, who the fuck do you think did? What, do you have to ask? Who else was involved in this plot? Obviously, your parents sold your ass out. Hello? Why is this a question? If you're not visual, I'm literally just like repeating emotion that all I can do is convey like a WTF. What do you mean? I, as the reader at this point, was like, yeah, obviously. What do you mean? Can we please have like an ounce of a brain, some strategic thinking? Can somebody just pull their heads out of their ass for 1 second, please? And like, just think a little bit. Whatever. We go into chapter 12. They're having a little bit of bonding because they realize that maybe they're not at fault. Maybe the other one's not as evil as they thought that they were. And she says, I'm sorry about the enchantment. I said, hoping he could hear my sincerity. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Eric released a heavy sigh. I'm struggling to accept that as true. I swear it by any of the virtues you like. The virtues are like her people's, not gods necessarily, but like kind of sort of like, it's like their pillars of religion. There's like a virtue of truth, a virtue of patience, a virtue of like a couple other ones that I'm forgetting. It's kind of said in passing. It's never explicitly stated, which honestly I kind of love. I have said this before, and I know I'm going to go on like a side tangent really fast. I love feeling dumb. I love feeling stupid. Don't explain everything to me. Like, there's a point. Ooh, how do I distinguish that? Because there's sometimes when I read these books, and it really pisses me off when it's not explained properly. But in this sense, I can tell it got thought out. And I can tell that there's more to it, and there was more planned and everything. But it's very, very apparent that it just like hasn't come up in conversation yet necessarily. Like, you can tell it's well fleshed out enough that it exists, but the story hasn't justified it to come out. And so the author's not info dumped on us in some way. And it's a very, very fine line to walk as a writer to not info dump, but also not like under explain things. But I think there's like a level of slightly under explaining that you have to keep the reader hooked and engaged and like wanting to know what's next. And if anything, I would say that this book did a good job at the couple of times where it like left those breadcrumbs of world building and of curiosity. But then there was also a couple of times, like with the green flame thing that came up one too many times, that really pissed me off because it got said too much and not explained. But I can't tell you what exactly the difference is in those things. I don't know. I'm rambling so bad, but like there's so much that I can't really explain why parts of this book worked so well and parts of this book did not work at all. And I'm having such a hard time distinguishing like what exactly it was that like had such stark differences in the writing or in the like writing quality, in my opinion, or like my experience as a reader. But there was just something where sometimes I was like, I was loving it. And then sometimes I was hating everything and I felt bored out of my mind. And then I was like, oh my God, but this is so good. And then I was like, oh my God, but I actually kind of hate my life. I haven't had that type of like emotional roller coaster in a book in a long time. So I don't know. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Back to the book. She says, yeah, I'll swear by any of the virtues that you want. That's not what I meant. It's that if you're telling me the truth, then I'm afraid that I've misjudged you rather badly. Yeah, you have, and you've been horribly rude about it too. I concede that my manners have been somewhat lacking. If you're attempting to find a reason to continue lacking manners, I refuse to assist you in your endeavors. Actually, Bianca, I'm attempting to suggest a truce. I blinked, disoriented. I thought we were exchanging the opening blows to a sparring match, and instead he was extending a hoof? A truce? Yes, a truce. Obviously, neither of us wanted to be here. We got off on the wrong foot, or the wrong hoof. Let's meet in the middle. Let's try to work this out. You know what I mean? Let's figure out, like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? Let's figure out how the heck we ended up in this position in the first place. Which I love. With the truth, they end up both admitting that they are very, very cold and that they need a little cuddle buddy so that they're able to go to sleep that night. And they do. She fixes the blanket on his little horse body. She rolls up next to him, kind of like cuddles next to him and whatnot. And it's cute. They warm each other through the night. She's having a good time until she is rudely awakened by somebody kicking her Not like hard, but like nudge, nudge. Hey, you, wake up. And it's that lady, the lady that's built like a brick house from the ball, his leader of his personal army, his lover. She's here. She's in this little secret area that nobody else should know about. And so, homegirl, I still don't know her name. What is her name? What is the main character's name? Bianca. Jesus Christ, dude. I'm so bad at my job. You can tell when I have notes versus when this is like off the cuff. Sorry. So Bianca gets awoken, and the woman, like the leader of this army thing, his lover is named Maria. And this is all the validation that she needed, right? She was believing what was happening, and believing what Lord Varen had told her because of the attitude that Maria was giving, because of the way that they were standing at like the little raised platform by the throne and whatnot. But the fact that Maria is the only person who knows about this little area with him, she says, ooh, this is all the confirmation that I needed. My husband has a lover. So they're immediately beefing because obviously Maria, it has a very close relationship with Eric. And she's like, what did you do with him? She starts talking to the horse because she's like, Eric, tell her that this is you, that this is who you are. Tell her what happened. So Eric starts talking. Obviously, Maria can't hear him. And so Maria says, I won't stand for mockery, not when Eric is missing. Where is he? Bianca, said Eric, I don't think she can hear me. And so she ends up having this like incredibly awkward conversation with this woman, trying to convince her that the horse next to her is I'm a real boy, and that she shouldn't, kill her, basically. Maria has like a sword like to Bianca's throat at this point and is like threatening her to tell the truth or not. And she's like, I don't know what to do. And eventually Eric says, hey, tell her her favorite tale is the story of the Wildwood Crown, and tell her we used to read it together behind the drapes in the library, and she'd pinch her nose so she didn't sneeze and get us caught. Bianca says this. Maria says, oh my God, Eric, it is you. What do we even do now? Like, oh my God. They have this like a little bit more back and forth and everything, and everybody's just like freaking the heck out. And Maria reveals that, Eric, you're needed at the castle immediately. It's a disaster. Half the court is convinced that you've been murdered, and the other half that you've been kidnapped. It took me this long just to get away without anyone noticing. And by the lady, I can't believe I'm talking to a horse. This had better not be a joke at my expense. Murder? They found the assassin then? Not exactly. Maria grimaced. From what I've gathered, there was a commotion, and then someone alerted the night watch. When they gained entry into Eric's chambers, they found a broken window, a knife of Demarian make, and blood staining the bed and floor. Lots of it. And so Eric and Bianca realize there shouldn't have been any blood. Like, very, very minimal blood. What do you mean a lot of blood? That's crazy. Somebody's setting us up. Somebody's trying to make it look like Eric got killed, that the assassination was successful. Oh my God, right? So they're realizing like, okay, so if this is the case, if somebody wants to make it look like Eric is dead, then they must have a reason. I grasped onto the politics of the situation as something I could comprehend. What? I grasped onto the politics of the situation as something I could comprehend. Hello? Claiming the throne, perhaps, or pinning the blame on someone. You, Maria interrupted. Sorry, her name is Marya, and in my head, I could read it as Maria, Mariah, Maria. I don't know. And every single thing that I've looked up has said it differently, so I'm sorry. If you've watched my channel, hey, you know this by now. I cannot consistently say anything or pronounce anything with any type of credibility. Don't expect that from me, okay? You'll be a lot happier if you don't. So, you, Maria interrupted. She'd apparently managed to follow the conversation turns despite being unable to hear Eric. I turned back to her. What about me? You did it, she repeated. That's the general conclusion. Most of the castle thinks that you murdered Eric. And they're like, okay, well, nobody else is going to believe that you're a horse, and I can't just show back up, because if I show up, they're going to literally kill me, because they've already taken her personal guard. Pretty much like all of the people that she brought with her from Demaria are in jail now. So she can't roll up and correct anything. Obviously, Horseman can't roll up and say anything. And it's not like Maria is going to have anything to really stand on to like justify any of this. And so the only option is to turn him back into a human so he can like defend her honor or like prove that he's, you know, alive or whatever. But she doesn't know how to undo that. And so the chapter ends with her saying, Maria, I have an idea, but I need your help. I have to get a message to my sister. So chapter 13 is her and Maria leaving Horseboy back in this little secret weird magic cottage as they go and trek their way back into the castle. Her being the like king's guard and all of this other stuff is able to kind of sneak through the halls, and she knows all the back ways around. It's literally just the two of them kind of sneaking through all of these halls. And what she needed from her was to get her to the ambassador, to the guy that has been like living in Gildheim for 12 years, who like reports everything to Demaria. Obviously, he's a spy. Ambassador, my ass. All of these people are spies. And so she says, hey, I need you to get some like this really, really important information to my sister, which is, hey, meet us at this particular lodge that's like right on the border of these two countries, like up in the mountains. It's like, I think a 3-day travel for them. And then it's like a 2-day or a 1-day travel for the sister. So they're going to like meet in the middle, meet with the sister so she can fix what's wrong and like undo her like magical curse. Right. So that's the intent. So they sneak through the castle. They take these like secret passages. It's very, you know, tense and oh my god and political, and there's like craziness going on, and there's some effery afoot, like very obviously some shenanigans happening, right? But it's fine. They're able to get through. There's no hiccups. The only hiccup, I guess, that kind of comes is at the end of it when she asks Maria to go up to the room because she needs her tonics, her little honey shots that make her tummy feel better whenever she's having her crazy like episodes that act up, and she's like literally cannot get out of bed in so much pain, like just cannot function as a human being when she has these flare-ups. So she's like, if I'm gonna have to travel for XYZ amount of days, like I'm going to have to need my medicine. They have this like whole back and forth, well, blah blah blah, doesn't really matter. Maria is able to go up there and get it for her, bring it back. They get back to Horseman in the woods in chapter 14. So they make their way back to the horse guy with all of their goodies. They have a couple of sacks full of stuff for the travel, and they're ready to go. They're going to ride horseback. They even brought a saddle that they're going to put on Eric so that she can ride, and she has, you know, these like bags and everything that they're going to attach to him. They'll start traveling through the night. Everything will be good. They'll get there in a couple days, and their chance to leave, and this is the part that I didn't understand, is they have to leave during the guard, or like during the change of the guard. So there's going to be like a very, very small window of time when they're going to be able to escape and not get spotted. And so I'm like, so are we in these crazy deep woods on castle grounds? Is all of the city encased, or like, you know what I mean? Like wrapped in like a stone wall? Like, what are we talking about here? You know what I mean? I was just like, what do you mean? Why do you have to go back to the castle to then leave? Like, there's no other exits? It's just like, I don't know. I was just kind of confused, but point being, it's a whole dramatic thing. And Maria and Eric have a cutesy goodbye. She says, you'd better come back safe, you muckhead. Her voice was rougher than usual. I wish I were going with you. Eric turned his head toward me. Tell her to be careful, and never mind, just tell her that. I conveyed the message, selfishly relieved that neither of them had said any more. With that, they have 5 days to get back before coronation. So the whole coronation for the king thing, it has to happen on the equinox, I believe it is. Some type of like lunar special day, because it's a very, very magical time. It's at this point where like big magic things can happen. It's this whole like balancing of the scales of magic that I think we'll talk about a little bit more later. But the point is, if a king is not established, declared, honored, whatever the wording is, if a king is not coronated, coronary, that's for your heart. I don't know what the word is. If a king does not become a king, if someone has not taken rule of the throne by the date of coronation, by the equinox, the magic goes crazy. Wild magic is not good magic. That's how you end up with crazy things like the fly fish and the trees with eyeballs and all this other like wild magic stuff. If you don't siphon it correctly, or if you don't have this like the deal, like the bond deal thing that was maintained by the founders of Gildheim, or by that founding woman on the horse that was on the flag. If you don't like honor the magic and continue that tradition of having a ruler of Gildheim, then the magic goes back to being wild. I hope anything that I just said made sense. I think it does, but maybe not to anybody else. So, point being, long story short, the bottom line up front is they have to have a king in 6 days or all hell will break loose. So this trip that they have to go up to this mountain to turn back into human is a big deal. They are in a hurry, like completely understatement here. They are in a hurry to go and get this fixed and come back. So that's what they do. They get out of the castle grounds. No, nothing really troubled them too bad. They're good. They cleared it. Everything's awesome. Let's ride, I said, and this time he didn't argue. He broke into a trot and then a canter, and soon we were flying along the road away from the gloaming city, towards Demaria, towards home, towards virtues guide me, a way to set this right. Hey, jump scare, sorry. And I don't have my microphone or camera or anything nice. It's like midnight and I'm editing and I'm realizing I didn't tell you like kind of important thing that happens right now. They're running along in the forest and all of a sudden the sun sets and he turns back into human. And so she like goes flying off of him and like ends up rolling around in the dirt and hurts her shoulder pretty bad and is like freaking out that he's human again. And then now you can go back to the rest of the video. I don't know what the heck happened. I don't know where that piece of my like explanation went. Okay, that's all. Love you. Bye. And so she, goes and kind of comforts him. They have a little bit of, oh my freaking God, I don't know what's happening. Gives him some clothing, gives him a little thing to cover himself up with. And they still have to travel because even though he's back to being human right now, they don't necessarily know how long that will last. And we'll talk about that in a second. What's more important is that as he fell to the ground, she stuck her hand out to help him get up, and he takes her hand. I pulled, and Eric pushed off too hard, perhaps unbalanced by the change back from horse to man, and he came to his feet in a rush, faster than either of us had anticipated, nearly crashing into me. Both of us froze, eye to eye. We were close enough to kiss, or as Eric seemed to think, to kill. My heart pounded in my ears. I was suddenly all too aware at how near our bodies were and how little he was wearing. I hadn't noticed his scent before. Ink and paper, with a hint of something headier that I could not name. You think you'll turn back? Eric grimaced. Or worse. What could be worse than transforming into a horse? Eric gave me a long look. I managed to hold it, but my face heated. There were 1,000 things that could be worse than being turned into a horse. Right, well, how long do you think we have? I transformed back at sunset. It's possible that the spell has a cyclical link. Horse by day, man by night, or something of that nature. That's not how magic works. Maybe not in Demaria, Eric said, though I believe that's more a result of how your country has chosen to use it than anything inherent to the magic itself. What do you mean? Your adepts, which are like magicians, your adepts are fond of channeling magic into physical constraints, but magic tends to run a bit wilder here in the north, and our spells are most powerful when linked to the world's natural cycles. He was warming to the topic. Despite his fatigue, it was unexpectedly riveting. Passion brought color and life to Eric's face. The coronation, for instance. That's why it must take place at the spring equinox. Balance of the day and night, balance of power, otherwise the magic here grows difficult. And this is where he explains the difficult thing being, he says it hasn't happened in century, like ever since the Wildwood Crown, since that deal and the horse lady on the flag. But I told you earlier, because I'm cool, and I cut to the chase. And so she's like, okay, well, if we have a limited time and you're human now, then let's just go back. Like, let's just hurry back. We'll go to Gildheim. You'll clear my name and clear your name and prove to everybody that you're still alive. And we'll figure something out. Like, if you're a horse sometimes, then we'll just hide you out or whatever. And he says, no, That's actually a terrible idea. We should not do that. Why not? We should take the chance to assure the castle that you're alive and clear my name. I don't need the entire court of Gildheim believing that I murdered my husband. Actually, that belief could work to our advantage. Have you lost your mind? Someone sent that assassin. If it wasn't either of us, well, it certainly wasn't me. Then someone else must have been responsible, and what happens next will reveal it. If we wait, Maria can find proof of who's behind this. I trust her to get to the root of it. If we stay clear, she's free to work without the assassin having another opportunity to strike. And so she's like, okay, cool. So if we had got married, and if, let's just spitball here, the assassination attempt had succeeded, would I have become the crown of Gildheim? And he nods, and she says, okay, so what if I also had been killed? Then what would have happened? It would have been contested. There are at least a half a dozen relatives who all believe that they have claim, but there's an old law that in the absence of a legitimate successor, the crown may pass to a bastard with the approval of the court. Lord Varon. I remembered the rage that had passed across his face when I danced with him. It had been brief, but I was certain that I had not imagined it. Was his resentment deep enough to want Eric dead? Would your half-brother have the approval of the courts? Would he have the approval that he needs? It's likely. Varon has generally been considered to be the better of the two of us, in all but blood. We need to go back then. We can confront him while you're still a man. We force him to confess. No, I don't believe Varon's behind this. We've never been close, but I don't believe that he would try to have me killed. And besides, he wouldn't dare anything that would risk his reputation. He would need the court's support to have a chance of inheriting, and anyone who thought that they had a strong claim to the throne might be responsible. Countess Signa, for example, the blonde-haired noblewoman who'd greeted us after the wedding that had been calculating, but that didn't mean she was plotting murder. The council's spies had reported discussions among Eric's more distant relatives about seizing the throne, but no actual plans that I knew of. And so she's like, no, really, I think it was Varon. Like, he has the most to gain from your death. And if all it takes is the court to declare it, and whoever comes to the court with the strongest claim gets the crown, like, it really could have been him. And he pushes back, and he's like, look, dude, it doesn't matter. Like, without any proof, all we're doing is throwing accusations around, and we don't know what's happening. He's like, ultimately, look, we need to continue to Demaria. Like, we need to continue and just go and talk to your sister. Even though you're no longer a horse? I gave this some thought while you were off with Maria. The court is already in chaos. It won't make much of a difference if I allow them to believe that I'm dead for a few more days. If we want answers, I can't show up in person, or whoever sent the assassin will only go back into hiding and wait for their next chance. It's a 2 days ride to the border on the main road. The coronation is at dawn on the 5th day from now. We have time to get there and back again. And besides, if this isn't going to last, it makes sense to be closer to the person who has the best chance at reversing the spell for good. And so with that, in chapter 16, they continue. They started as a human, making their journey to go and find the sister. And inevitably, immediately, they find each other wildly attractive. There's a lot of tension off the bat, and it is a lot of staring at each other. It ends up with her having to steal shoes. So she had a spare change of clothes that he put on, but there's no shoes, and it's really, really cold out. It's really crappy. She's carrying the bags. He's carrying the saddle. They're not having a good time. They're in one of the, like, outer, you know what I mean? Like, influence area before they go out into, like, the actual wilderness. And she ends up stealing a pair of work boots from the guy. He, like, left them outside. She stole them. They fit him really well. Everything's cool. He feels bad about it. They'll compensate him later. Don't worry. Everybody feels guilty. But they steal these boots. And they have a moment. And he is realizing, as he's putting these boots on and they're kind of staring at each other, he says, I've been thinking of this whole horse fiasco and assassin thing, and I want to thank you. Who are you, and what have you done with this surly man that I married? I'm trying to be better than him. I know we didn't get off to the best start, but I also realize that you were not to blame for my personal misunderstandings. So, thank you. What precisely are you thanking me for? For trying to save me. When the assassin attacked, you threw yourself in front of me and you could have been killed. You did the same. I said, surprised at the realization. Eric flushed. I promised to protect you. I made the same promise. So your marriage vows do mean something to you? Of course they do. If they didn't, I wouldn't have sealed them with magic. And I don't know why that's so hot. I love a virtuous man, and I love a virtuous man who's bound by magic. I love that. I have said this so many times. I haven't said it recently because it hasn't been relevant. I love a man who loves a woman. I love a man, again, who is like so dedicated to his word and to maintaining his word and being like virtuous in such a way. It's so hot to me. I love that so much. Like, you say something, you follow through with it. Chef's kiss, dude. Oh, the loyalty and the oath, like the idea of, I think this is why, and I brought it up in the last video, and I'll bring it up till the day I die. I will, in fact, be doing a rant review about it. That is why I loved Paladin's Grace so much by T. Kingfisher and like the entire of the Saint of Steel series by them. The whole idea is these paladins who have like sworn themselves to this like higher standard of living and like upholding these like virtues of their god and like following through with like XYZ and just being like good men. I don't know, man. I don't know. I can't talk about it. I'm blushing. It's a lot. It's heavy. What they're carrying kind of sucks. It sucks to trek around with. They're both exhausted. They haven't slept in like a day and a half. And it's just not very good. And then obviously he's dealing with the like emotional turmoil and physical turmoil, I guess, of like becoming a freaking horse and then going back to being human and like dealing with like everything that comes with that. And so they end up just like sleeping on the floor of the woods. When they wake up in the morning, he's very, very close to her, and he says, like, puts a finger up to her lips and tells her to look up and to not make a noise because she'll scare them away. And going through their bags are glowworms. How do you say this word? Weirums or glowworms? Eric said astonishingly. He was smiling. I hadn't realized he was capable of that expression. He says, a rare sight these days. They've been decimated by the logging trade. The trade that floated Damaria's ships. The trade that the treaty that we had signed would exponentially expand. No, Eric definitely hadn't authored those documents. Because the glowworms are these like really rare, kind of almost, I pictured it as like a little glow-in-the-dark ferret type things with wings. I don't know. Don't look at me. I'm sure it's like a real thing or like a real folklore thing. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't care. She ends up scaring him away, though, and she realizes at his smile how touching and like sentimental he is and blah, 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 blah. She's attracted to him. Is really like what all of this is boiling down to is the more and more that they're like spending time together in the woods and like talking, and she's seeing his passions come through and his emotions being expressed, and they've had this truce that they don't hate each other and that they're on like the same side of being used, I guess would be the word, by whoever the heck is forced them into marriage. There was something about him that found all of the dents in my armor and worse, made me wonder what it would be like to set it aside. But that would be the worst sort of mistake. Just because we had a truce didn't mean I could trust him. Not with myself and certainly not with my weakness. Because she's starting to feel sick again. And throughout this entire book, and I want to stand up and throw my chair across the room. She constantly refers to her weakness and her illness, and she can't show weakness and she can't tell anybody what's happening and she can't be honest with him because it'll be used against her and she'll be treated like trash and thrown out. In her weakness, and again, I am not, please, God, Lord, trust. I'm not trying to diminish like IBS or celiac like disease. I get it. I know it's a crippling pain. Honest to God, I understand. But the way that it is like talked about in this book was like, I think if no matter what it was, no matter what type of chronic pain that she faced, the way that it got discussed in this book felt so over the top. And I also understand my ignorance of, again, somebody who does not have chronic like physical pain. I don't understand what that is. And I don't understand what, like how much it impacts your day-to-day life and some decisions and thought processes and whatnot. And so like, I might just sound like an ignorant asshole right now. And I'm, again, completely transparently acknowledging that, but it read so poorly in the book, the way that it was presented, that it just felt so repetitively irritating. And I think it was just because of the phrasing, because every time it was like, I don't want to show my weakness because of my illness, my weakness, my illness, my weakness, my illness, my weakness, my illness, you know, instead of like mixing it up, or maybe just like hinting at these concerns, or hinting at the insecurity, or hinting at the like trepidation of exposing yourself too much to somebody that like you want to show yourself to, or like, you know what I mean, be honest with. It was talked about so bluntly and directly that it felt repetitive and annoying. Whereas I think if this got talked about directly a couple times to get the point across, and then more vaguely or loosely or conceptually in all of these other times that it got brought up, it would have carried more of an impact with it. And you would have gotten the point across about how like consistent and how much that it impacts again, or like affects your day-to-day life, without repeating the same freaking 3 sentences and the exact same ideas in every single chapter. And I guess maybe that's what it boils down to. You can repeat the idea if you want to emphasize the importance of it, but don't repeat the exact thought process or the exact impact, and don't repeat the exact words, because there's a million different ways to say something, and there's a million different ways to convey the way that something impacts your life without saying it directly. And this again is coming from a place of ignorance, as somebody who, like, I don't suffer from chronic pain. I hope that makes sense to you. I don't know. So they continue traveling. Everything's cool. He's like, so when they wake up that morning, they see the Y rooms. He eventually turns back into a horse. Whatever. He did take his clothes off and like pack them away, and then he just like stood around naked, like hiding behind a tree until he turned into a horse. They start traveling. When the time comes, he turns back into a man. Everything's cool. They're kind of like in a groove about what is going on. And they're going through all of this in chapter 17. And she's reflecting about how she hasn't heard back from Avito. Avito being the ambassador, like the Gildheim ambassador for Demaria, that she like told him to give the news to her sister. And I was like, how would you hear back from him? You're literally in the middle of the woods. I guess there's some magic stuff happening, some magic stuff afoot that I should be expecting here, but I don't know how. And they're riding along, you know, he's obviously a horse, she's a woman riding on his back. They're vibing, they're chilling, they're going through, and the next couple chapters are mostly just them talking. You know, this is the relationship building, but there's this like weird pushback where she's like, I don't want to get to know you. Don't pretend to court me. We're already married. We don't need to befriend each other or try to have a relationship. And I'm like, why not? Like, why? She just keeps having this like weird, inexplicable pushback to like having a normal conversation with this guy. Or like, I don't know, you are married. Exactly. Maybe you should try to get to know each other. It was just so strange to me. But anyway, they talk, they get close. I'm skipping a lot of it because I don't know. But she eventually agrees and she says, okay, fine. Let's play at courting. We'll take turns posing questions that we both answer. You start, since you took issue with my inquiry about your breakfast habits. I skipped it for a reason. You don't need to know. It was really awkward and weird. Whatever. And so he says, where's your favorite place to spend time? I didn't even need to consider. The weapons training ground. Wry amusement flickered through his thoughts. Consistent with your choice of dance accessories. What do you like about it? Because she had the thing in her arm when they were dancing, like the little stabby guy. And she says, it's where I feel most myself. I don't have to think about politics or my parents' expectations or the weight of my duties. Nothing matters except the sword in my hand, and everything is so clear. So she returns the question, where do you feel most comfortable? And he says, the library. And this is where we get introduced to the idea that, again, is incredibly frustrating to me, so I'll be honest with you about it. There is this weird indicator, half sentences that he'll begin, and he'll be like, yeah, in comparison to, or I'm not good enough when compared to, and then trails off. And it happens like 5 times in the book. I'm going to give it to you straight. It's compared to Lord Byron, the bastard son of the queen. Byron, he's taller, he's older, he's stronger, he is more like adept. He's more like prepared to do like king ruler type things versus Eric, who is more He's a little more scrawny. He's an introvert. He loves to read. Like, that's all he wants to do. He doesn't want to rule. He doesn't want to talk to people. He doesn't want to fight. He's not good at it. He obviously, like we saw earlier, whenever he was getting attacked, like his fight or flight or freeze is clearly freeze. And so he's just not made to be a king. And so he has grown up with this like comparison in the back of his head, and also direct vocal comparison from his mother about how he's not adequate enough. And so this is something that these two will bond over significantly, is this like feeling of inadequacy when compared to their siblings, and feeling of inadequacy, like they're not good enough for their parents, or like in the expectations that their parents have on them, which is great. I feel like that is a wonderful relatability character thing for people to like bond over. Just be straight up with it. Stop stringing me along. In the middle of this ride, they go silent after a little while because she brought up his mom or something, and he got all clammed up about it. She doesn't know it yet, but as I just kind of alluded to, his mom was a bitch. His mom was not a very nice lady. His mom compared her significantly to his brother and just like constantly told him how he wasn't good enough to be the king. Whatever, we'll get there. Don't worry about it. So she, he clams up after she brings up his mother. And then eventually, she starts to feel pain because their breakfast that morning was some bread. She's having a reaction because of her celiac disease and is not feeling very well, but she doesn't want to be a drama queen, and she doesn't want to say anything because they need to keep traveling. Like, they don't have time to pull off to the side of the road and let her like wither away in pain for a couple of hours while this passes. And so she tries to ignore it. He does not, though, because they have a mental mind connection because he's a horseman. And also, he's just an attentive husband. He asks her about it. He's like, is it your period? Like, what's going on? And she says, not that. It's something else. It's happened before. Truly, it's nothing. You can barely even ride. It's clearly not nothing. Is there anything that helps? Concern softened Eric's words, and if I hadn't known better, I would have thought that he cared. But of course he didn't. I was just inconveniencing us both. And this is that shit that pisses me off. He obviously cares about you. You've literally had so many conversations up to this point, like 4, but still. He made it obvious that the reason he didn't care about you and the reason that he had an attitude was because he thought that you were like forcing him into marriage. He called a truce. He told you that he made his vows willingly and like legitimately, and he's here to take care of you. Get up, girl, get up. Shut the frick up. I don't want to hear about it. He cares about you. I feel like I don't need to say that, but apparently I do in all of these freaking books. And it makes me so mad. And so with that, she goes on to explain. I'm taking my jacket off. I'm so mad. Don't look at my bra straps, you little freak. Hold on. I'm so hot right now. Okay. So I didn't realize my tank top matches my background. She indicates it as her condition. Your condition? Eric paused. I wish you would have told me. My heart dropped several notches. This was when he would say it. He hadn't known before the marriage. And now that he did, the match was off. You're right. I shouldn't have hidden it from you. Now that you know, I'm willing to dissolve the match, but I want to sign a new treaty first to formalize the peace before we divorce. Eric's pace faltered, jolting me. Before we divorce? Yes, since we've realized that neither you nor the council is actually threatening war on the other, there's no reason for us to be bound by this arrangement once we've returned to Arnhelm. Where's Arnhelm? What is that? I think Arnhelm might be his city in Gildheim. I don't know. Is Gildheim the country and Arnhelm is the city? I don't know. I don't care. You don't come here for the truth. You come here for the yap, right? Don't shut up. Once we get back to the castle, especially since you clearly don't want to engage in marital duties with me. I felt a renewed flush of shame as I recalled his repulsion in the bedchamber, and I lifted my chin to hide it. I could hurt later when I was safely alone. And now that you know about my condition... Eric stopped walking. He swung his head to look at me, his expression as unreadable as a stone wall. I don't see how your condition has any impact on whether we divorce. You don't? Why should it? My parents' voices echoed in my head, the same words that I had heard almost daily since my flares began. Don't show anyone your flaws. Don't let them see your failure. If they learn of your weakness, they'll use it against you and they'll cut you down. And I wish I could search for the entirety of that phrase, because it is used at least 10 times throughout the book, where like she'll be in a moment and she'll be like, I remember my parents' words to me. My parents said blah bitty blah bitty blah about my worth and my flare-ups, and that's why I feel like such a worthless piece of shit. You don't need to say it to me every time. Yet again, I'm back to this whole fact of like, I don't want to say show don't tell, because again, I understand there are certain things that people say to you that will stick with you for the rest of your life. There will be things, if somebody says something to you so horrific, so traumatizing, so whatever, that like 10 years removed, you'll be hanging out on the couch one day and it'll just like weasel its way into your brain and you'll be like, oh my God. And you'll just like remember what this person said to you. If somebody says something horrific repeatedly to you, I 100% understand. There are like words break you on such like a soul level that is so hard to explain to other people unless you have been objected to levels of certain verbal abuse, like not to, again, like trauma dump or be weird about it on the fucking internet. But there are certain things that like, if it is so deeply ingrained in you, and if these words are so repeated to you, it does shift who you are. You do hear these voices in your head when you're making these actions or when you're doing things, and you can convey that in the writing without explicitly repeating the entirety of the sentence. You can just say, my parents' voices echo in my head. You can just say one sentence from it. You can not repeat the direct quote, but instead repeat how it made you feel, like in reference to this, or only quote like an aspect of it that like you're hearing yourself say, or like I clung to the word failure, or I clung to the word weakness, and like I can't be weak around people. And your reader is smart enough to put it together that like that's what she's talking about. The idea that you have to spell out things so clearly for readers that you need to repeat the exact same paragraph every single time that you're bringing up the exact same quotation is so, in my opinion, incredibly disrespectful to your reader. Like, I understand, and this is like a whole other thing. I understand that reading comprehension is in the toilet, and that is not to the fault of like the average person. That is not to the fault of anybody. It is a like systemic failure of the education system. It is a systemic failure of social media these days, and brain rot, and like shortened attention spans, and like just a general removal from reading comprehension. However, the type of people that are sitting down and reading 340 pages about this stuff, I feel like are not given the credit to process and remember certain things. And if you don't even give the reader the opportunity to make these connections, you're like a part of the problem. If you, throughout your entire book, spell out all of this stuff so blatantly and like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, instead of letting us fill in a couple of those numbers, then how are you ever going to expect a reader to have any type of mystery or why would anybody think about your book after they put it down? Like if you're not leaving air of mystery or like things for people to piece together, they're just going to read through it and then immediately like put it in the pile and never think of it again. But it's so irritating because I'll go through these books and I'm just like, yeah, I know. Like, move on. Okay, so sorry. So she hears her parents' voices and she's like, I'm such a failure and I can't let anybody know about my disease, about my condition, because they'll hate me. Because I'm weak. I'm too weak to rule by your side. Too weak to be my parents' heir. His tone darkened. Do you think so little of me? What do you mean? You left your country and family behind for a marriage you never asked for just to keep the peace. You risked your life to save mine, and now you're risking it again to protect a land that isn't even your home. And on top of that, you're clearly in pain and should be in bed under the care of a green witch, not making yourself worse by riding through the cold, but you're determined to push on anyway for the sake of your people. Most people would simply give up, and yet you've never wavered. Only a monster would think a woman like that was weak. Strength isn't about what your body can do. It's about how you respond to adversity, and I'd never known someone so determined to do the right thing, no matter the personal cost. But you said I should have told you about my condition, not so that I could cast you beside Bianca, so that I could be cognizant of your needs, so that I could help. Help how? My hours at the library haven't been spent on storybooks. I've read quite extensively about the various ailments of the body, among other things. I don't need you to fix me. My words were clipped as sharp as a horse's shoes striking slate. Don't you use a pun with me. Don't you fucking use a horse pun with me in a critical, important character development moment. I swear to God, Stevenson, what's your name? M. Stevenson? I'll fight you for that shit. Don't you get me invested in a moment and then you ruin it with a horse pun. Don't be comedic relief in your own novel. Say it with your whole chest. If you want to do an emotionally, tugging at my heartstrings, don't be cracking jokes. Embrace it. Say it with your whole freaking chest. I don't need you to fix me. I didn't mean to imply otherwise. I just thought if it were possible that you would prefer to not be in pain. His tail flicked against my shins. He'd gone rigid again. If he were in human form, he would be avoiding my eyes and flushing. But wait, I was the one who should be on edge here. Why would he... Oh... For the first time, I realized his behavior might not stem from arrogance as I had assumed. The blushing, the stilted words, it suddenly occurred to me that Eric wasn't cold, but nervous. He'd mentioned his dislike of courtly maneuvering. Perhaps he thought that every word he said to me would be misconstrued, and so far I had largely proved him right. He pushes back a little bit more and he says, hey, so let's talk about it. Like, I'm not trying to fix you. I just want to understand, and maybe something I've learned could maybe give some additional insight. You know what I mean? Like, you've been going to an apothecary in Demaria. I've obviously had a different upbringing, and the things and the medicinal stuff that I've read is, obviously vastly differs from what your people do. Let's talk. And so they do. We rode on. Eric questioning me and me answering as best as I could. The information he sought was diverse in scope. Times of day when my flare arrived, things that made my symptoms improve or worsen, what precisely the tonics did, and why I could only take so much of them at a time. Whether my ailment corresponded with the moon, the weather, my cycle, my meals, I hadn't realized I was paying attention to such things, and yet, as he questioned me, the answers came readily. In chapter 18, they end up at a little roadside inn. They go inside, obviously. It's cute. They have a moment. They end up getting a room together. Flirty, flirty, flirty. Banter, banter, banter. There's only one bed. They end up having to sleep next to each other. There's a whole bath thing situation where they take turns taking baths, and there's just some wild tension. She finds out that he brought a couple of books because he's just a reading nerd, and a random bird appears clicking on the glass to deliver the letter from the ambassador guy. He got a hold of her, and I think it's a puffin, honestly, and gives a letter giving some updates on things. And the puffin does not have much to update them on. There's just nothing has really happened in the last day and a half, I guess, that they've been away. That's fine. What else happens in this chapter? When they first get in there, there's a group of people that's staring at them super funny in the corner of the room, that she feels very, very uncomfortable by, that obviously they become relevant in a minute. So I'm saying it to you now. When she gets in the tub, she feels the hot water stinging this, scabs and cuts and whatnot on her shins, but her hands feel fine. Right? Because her hands are all healed and have these little golden lines. And so he sees it and he says that they are from blood magic. And so she's like, hold on a second. Blood magic? What could this have happened? What do you mean blood magic? We haven't done any blood magic other than our wedding. And he has the whole, honey, you turned me into a horse. There was definitely some magic that happened. And she's like, but my sister doesn't do blood magic. That's not something that we do in Demaria. And he's like, well, you cut your hands on the freaking sconce thing. You had blood when you opened up it. And so that's what happened. Obviously your blood infused with whatever, spell or magic thing that your sister had on the locket. And that must have, cast the blood magic. I curled my hands closed, hiding the marks. So they were a sign of blood magic. If only I knew exactly what that meant. Whatever I had inadvertently done, I was almost afraid to guess. At least now I knew why my palms were crisscrossed with golden lines. Okay, that's all you care about? Not the fact that it was blood magic that turned your husband into a fucking horse? And then, like I said, she's in the bath, he's reading, and she asks, so tell me, what are the books that are so essential that they had to accompany us to the border, like, of the country. He thinks that she is mocking him. She's not, so she pushes on and she's like, hey, no, seriously, like, I want to understand you. I want to know. And he says, and what if you should come to understand me and you don't like what you discover? Which again is like, I don't know why. That's another one of those sentences that, like, I love so much. And I love the idea of, I feel like that is one of the, like, true indicators of saying that somebody is incredibly, like, self-conscious or has, like, a level of self-hatred or this, like, internalized not feeling good enough, that they ask such questions. And that's how you can convey that type of personality and, like, deep-seated issues without directly saying he's insecure. Does that make sense? Like, that is such a loaded question to ask and such a loaded thing to say that carries so much more weight than telling me that, like, he looked down at his shoes and he couldn't look at me in the eye when he said blah, blah, blah. No, make him say something like that that's not direct but, like, conveys the point. Like, that carries so much more weight and I feel like is so much more relatable, I guess, because I feel like so many more readers can see themselves or hear themselves saying such a thing rather than this, like, cutesy, romanticized version of self-consciousness, you know, as seen through the eye of another person and, like, as described by another person. Like, now we're hearing it and seeing it directly of how he perceives himself when he's feeling this way. And so it carries a little bit more weight with the reader. So he says this. I love this next part. He says, okay, so what if, should you come to understand me, you don't like what you discover? In our vows, I promise to care for you. Can you truly care for someone that you don't know? I would argue it's worse to be truly known and despised than not cared for to begin with. And so finally he answers, and he says, it's a volume on alternative logging practices. After I read the treaty terms, I wanted to learn if there were any means of fulfilling its stipulations without harming Gildheim's remaining wild places. This man, how had I ever thought him heartless? My mouth curved. How despicable of you. And so this is the point at the 51% mark on page 171. She looks over at the fire at this, like, lodge and sees, like, the little green aura around it again and asks him. And she's like, Eric, why is the fire green? He glanced up from his book. A green witch spell. It makes the flames last longer to save on wood. You'll see it in every hearth in Gildheim if you look the right way. I recalled what he had said earlier about green witches apprenticing within and serving their communities. How different from Demaria, where the adepts not only trained in isolations but rarely sold their magics to anyone save nobles or wealthy merchants. It was a difference that I found and I didn't mind. And I'm like, you had to wait until the 51% mark to tell me that? Why again? Are we not utilizing the whole ambassador? It's not even, like, an important plot point for her to realize that, like, it's a magical thing. It makes no sense that you made me wait this long to have this information, and that makes me want to, again, throw my chair across the room. They're sitting by the fire, reading together. She's getting lost in thought. She falls asleep. He picks her up and carries her bridal style to the bed, and they lay together, and she puts her head on his chest, and that's how they fall asleep. And it's so romantic and cute, and just before I crossed into sleep, his arm crept around my waist so lightly that I probably dreamed it. And this is again where I say, girl, get up. Get up. He obviously likes you. There's obviously attraction. There's obviously something here. Why are we playing dumb? Please, for the love of God, give me a strong female lead who is capable, smart, has money, and is not literally freaking stupid. Can we get all of those in one character, please? Because I feel like literally all of these, every single main female character that I read in these godforsaken books is either poor, and so she clings to the rich man, or is in some, like, poor standing, so she ends up clinging to whatever guy that can help her get out of her, like, current economic or socioeconomic standing, or she's just this freaking stupid and ends up falling for some smart guy that can help her. There's some lack of familial support, and so she clings to like the first guy that gives her attention or like can provide some type of whatever. Or she's all of these things. She has all these traits, right? And then she's just stupid and can't read a room and can't pick up on the fact that like obviously things change and he likes you, and like he's literally almost told you out loud verbatim, and like you're just not clocking it. Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me.
Kaylee, that's tension. What other tension do you want in the book? How else do you expect characters to grow and like a character arc to happen?
Write a better fucking book then. Hey, turns out you can write a better book. You can have a plot that's deeper than that, or you can have character growth that is deeper than those like 5 surface level things that I just described. You don't need a tragic backstory to have like a valid story told. And you don't need the same 5 tropes of a backstory to have a valid story told in character growth moment. I'm tired of reading about stupid women, and I'm tired of reading about poor and abused women being taken advantage of in these books. Even in a book like this that is like so lighthearted and cutesy and whatever, I'm so tired of it. Chapter 19. They wake up late in the morning. He obviously turns into a horse. She has a nightmare that night that she wakes up from where she was dreaming about Catalina and how she had ended that relationship because of her parents and because of whatever, and how much it really, really messed her up. Eric hears her breathing being kind of off. And so he says, hey, are you having like another flare up? Like, are you having another, thing of your condition? She says, no. He says, okay, well, talk to me, baby. So if it's not your condition, like what's going on? And so she explains to him. She's very, very open about this whole Catalina situation and how guilty she feels, for like kind of breaking her heart. And she's like, yeah, we both moved on and everything, but I always felt like I was never able to live the life that I wanted because I had my duty. I had these things that I had to do that like I couldn't do what I wanted. And it ends up being with like Eric saying, okay, well, hey, I know you're here. You married me because it was your duty. Like, that's how you ended up here. So, like, duty or not, you should have the choice. You ought to decide for yourself who you share your life with. So, when we get back from this, we can divorce. She says, we're both born of noble families. You know how this works. He says, but why shouldn't it be? We decide the fates of entire countries. What's stopping us from deciding the course of our own lives? And so he's like, yeah, if you want to, when we get back, you can divorce me and you're more than welcome. Like, obviously, I'm not going to like go to war with your family. I'm not going to hold a vendetta against you. Go and do what you want. I want you to be free and make your own choices and live your own life. And it's so incredibly sweet and romantic. And she's just thinking the prospect should have made me feel at liberty, the entire ocean before me, any compass direction ready to be made my own, but instead it unmoored me. I felt lost, adrift with no shore in sight, without my marriage to Eric, without a clear and single path forward. I hardly knew who I was. If I wasn't the daughter, unflinchingly fulfilling her duties, I wasn't sure I was anyone at all. Eric was waiting for my answer. I swallowed and forced a smile. Thank you, was all I managed to whisper. I allowed myself to imagine it. Once we reversed the enchantment and returned to Arnhelm, I would be freed from a marriage with a man that I didn't love. I could do anything that I desired, marry whoever I chose. Not Catalina, that chance was long gone, but there were countless other options. A woman from the Zay Empire that would bring with her silks and spices. A man from Demaria who would make me always feel at home. The road branched into endless possibilities. 1,000 routes whose ends I could not envision. The choice was mine. The thought should have been a weight off of my shoulders. So why did it feel instead like the weight had doubled, suffocating me? And this is the point where I say, if you have not listened to the Fig Tree excerpt out of The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, I highly recommend you looking it up. The Fig Tree by Sylvia Plath. It is a wonderful analogy for the idea of having so many paths in life set ahead of you that it is crippling and it is incredibly difficult to decide what life you want to go forward. And you end up with this like paralysis of choices until all of the figs on the tree, on the branches ahead of you, on the branches in front of you all die, and you end up not taking any of them and not making any decision on the life forward and choosing the life that you desire. It's so good. I have an entire rant review about The Bell Jar. I feel like this was a wonderful not an illusion, maybe a metaphor, maybe just like some type of like similar thought process. It made me think of that. In chapter 20, they fall back asleep together. She wakes up and he's cradling her, and he has a little bit of what you expect a man to have in the morning, you know what I mean, to her backside. And she's like, oh my God, this is so horrifying. I don't want to wake him up because he would be horrified about what's happening and he would somehow blame me for it. And so she doesn't want to wake him up. So she ends up just like awkwardly kind of like laying there until eventually the sun rises and homie turns into a horse in bed with her. Ends up breaking the bed because he's so heavy. She screams. It's super awkward. The little like hotel, motel, Holiday Inn people end up coming upstairs and they say, hey, are you good? She's like, yeah. It's super awkward, very, very cringy. Ends up, telling them that they're fine and they go away. And then she just has to walk downstairs with her horse. Don't ask me. They end up leaving some money behind to try and pay for it. Obviously, it's not enough, but they take note. And yet again, don't worry, they feel guilty about it. They will pay these people back. But either way, it's just this like awkward thing. And so they end up leaving. They get through everything. Again, kind of like awkward, kind of weird, but they're back on the road, heading to Demaria to see her sister. Along the way, they have more and more conversation. And this time, on this particular conversation, she ends up straight up asking him if he has had a lot of lovers, if he has shared a bed with anybody else before like they had. And he says no. He was always too afraid to get close to anybody because they would like want him for the wrong reasons, or it would just be kind of weird. And so it was always like very detached. And so she realizes, wait a second. So you and Maria, you guys aren't like a thing? He says, no, of course not. Like, she doesn't even like men. Like, we're just best friends, like childhood friends. And it was the best thing that my mom ever did, was like forcing me into these trainings and like being close with her. But no, there's nothing between us. And she's like, oh my God, that's actually like so cool. She's like, whatever. This little cutesy moment gets interrupted though, because as they're making their way deeper and deeper into the forest, she turns behind her and a flicker of movement caught my attention on the otherwise empty road. Behind us, a trio of figures on horseback, distant enough that they were only dark silhouettes where the path met the sky. My hand crept to my sword. Eric, I said, my mouth going dry as sand. I think we're being followed. And in chapter 21, that is exactly what's happening. It's the trio that was down there in the previous chapter that was like at the hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. That was at the like tavern thing that they got into and they stayed the night at. And they were in the corner staring at them all weird. It's those people. They followed them. And in chapter 21, they are getting confronted because they're like, well, that's the finest stallion that I've ever seen. And I've never heard anybody that like dresses like you and has a horse that nice or like talks like you. I think it's her accent or something that they're like, they clock it that she's royalty. And then obviously the horse is like so nice looking. And so they rob her. They surround her. They get it together. They're about to rob her. Obviously, she has nothing to offer. They literally just left all of their money at the hotel or at the inn to pay for the broken bed thing. So she has nothing. They don't really have any food. There's really quite literally nothing. And so they're just going to steal the horse. And as they go through all of her bags, and they're coming to this realization, the guy that's with them says, rotting waste of a day, cursed the man. What is she, the poorest noble in Gildheim? I almost could have laughed. It was so far from the truth and yet painfully close. But their leader's next words carved even the thought of laughter out at the root. We're done here. We're done here then, she said. Cut her throat and leave her for the werewolves. Oh, no. Chapter 22, Eric is like telling her telepathically to run, and the sun is setting. She knows this, so she's trying to waste a little bit of time, and she says, I'm not poor, and I'm not a nobleman. I'm actually a witch. And then she's like waiting for the sun to set below the skyline so she can like start talking in what sounds to them like gibberish, because she's speaking in Demarian, like in her native language. And she's saying a bunch of like random words. And then eventually she does so enough, they start getting freaked out about it. But all of a sudden there's the white flash and he turns into a man. Okay. He turns into a man enough to kind of like throw everybody off and get them confused, to the point that she like jumps at one of them. Oops, sorry. She jumps at one of them to like kind of attack one. She grabs Eric. They hop on a horse. They like steal one of their horses, hops on the back of it, and they make a run for it. Hello? They shoot at them. They have a gun. They have like one of the only guns in Gildheim. I didn't say that, but they're like shooting after them as they're like running away through the woods. One of the bullets end up hitting her in the side. And she, of course, doesn't say anything because the adrenaline, she doesn't necessarily feel it at first, but eventually she ends up bleeding out enough that she slides off the horse. They're still running. He says, "Oh my God, don't you die on me." And we escalate very, very quickly in this chapter where she says, "I am getting colder and colder and his voice is getting further and further away from me and everything's slowly disappearing and I think I'm dying because I got shot in the ribs." She, like I said, she slides off the horse. It's very dramatic. He pulls her back on and he says, "Don't worry, hold on, I know where to go." And he's like whipping the little reins or whatever on the horse. And they end up going to a Greenwich village, town, house, area. How does he know about it? How does he know where to go? Is it another like strange magic thing where like if you know, you know, and if you think about it hard enough, you just end up there? Maybe. So she ends up at this like Greenwich magical healing area where this lady ends up healing her, which is exactly what happens in chapter 23. Like for the rest of chapter 22, that's exactly what's happening. She's getting healed up. She like basically almost died. The witch was able to save her, heal her wounds. They've lost an entire day of her having to heal from this bullet wound and get some sleep and whatnot. It is what it is though, right? And so in chapter 23, after another entire day of rest, healing from this wound, she wakes up with Eric in the room with her, holding her hand. And she, yet again, has this entire thing of feeling like a failure. And she says, you know, "Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you so much for bringing here. I feel like I would have died otherwise." And he says, "I would have died otherwise. Like, thank you for like protecting me and doing XYZ." And she says, you can't thank me. Like, I was a failure. I saw danger coming and I should have kept us safe, but I didn't do anything but let it arrive. I didn't even fight. Instead, I got myself injured and lost us time that we can't afford, not to mention our remaining supplies, and now we're even worse off than before, thanks to my weakness. I think it was because her weakness. I think her weakness being, I think she had like another flare up and that's why they were going slower, or they had to like take a pause for a little bit there so she could like take her tonics and feel better. And so she's saying that that's why the bandits or whatever caught up to them. I don't know. Don't look at me like that. He says, "I don't understand why you persist in calling yourself weak when you're clearly anything but. If you think that, you clearly don't know me at all. I know you enough to know your strength, whatever you think to the contrary. I'd spent most of my life keeping everyone at a sword's distance, maintaining my shields so no one could see the weakness within and twist it to their own ends. But Eric had seen past my defenses, and he kept coming back anyway. He hadn't rejected me, hadn't used me. What if he was telling the truth? What if I wished he was? Eric took the bowl from me. It was like food or something, setting it aside. Seas, why did he have to be so gentle? I didn't deserve gentle, and once again I had let down my family, my country, my husband. Eric, my voice emerged as thin as silken thread. What are we? Girl, get up. Get up. You literally had a blood ceremony. I am so mad. Hesitantly, he touched the mark on my fourth finger, skin to skin, scar to scar. What do you want us to be? I swallowed hard. I'm afraid, I said, releasing the truth, revealing my deepest weakness. I'm afraid of wanting what I know I can't have. What makes you so certain that you can't have it? I'm fairly certain it doesn't want me back. Maybe it thinks the same about you. I was drowning in him. I don't know why it would have drawn that conclusion. Eric's flush deepened. His hands tightened on the book at his knees, and I had the treacherous thought that I wondered what they would feel like on me. You're my wife, he said, abandoning our feeble pretense that we might be talking about anything else, and my heart stuttered at the word. But I'm all too aware that you were forced into this marriage, and I've never expected you to want me, much less love me. My apprehension seized onto the easier emotion of anger. I flared up, snatching my hand back to my chest. That's rich coming from you. I don't understand this game that you're playing. You look at me as if you want to kiss me, and then you pull away as if I'm poison. You can hardly even bear to share a bed with me, and yet you hold my hand while saying that I don't want you. Eric shook his head sharply. his eyes locking onto mine. It's not a game. It's a weakness. I'm afraid, too. Oh, I could barely manage a whisper. Bianca, Eric said. My name was as sharp as a hook from his lips, reeling me towards him, whether I willed to or not. He leaned forward, bracing himself on the headboards so that he hovered over me. Oh my God. There's never been any question that I wanted you. I wanted you even when I thought you intended to kill me, even though I knew I should be running as far from you as I could get. I wanted you to my own humiliation. Okay. I stared up at him speechless. You terrify me, Bianca. I can't stop wanting you, even if it breaks me. Heat rushed to my face, my stomach bloomed between my legs. The way he looked at me, hungry but tentative and tender all at once, he couldn't be telling anything but the truth. Eric, I've wanted you from the moment I first saw you. He froze, his entire body rigid with surprise, and then all at once he softened into me. Bianca, we don't have to do this. I don't expect. And then they start to do it literally in the infirmary. You are at the Green Witch's infirmary. You are in a hospital bed. You are still wrapped up in bandages. He literally just got done giving you like a freaking hospital dinner. And then y'all are gonna over here be banging on the fucking hospital bed in the infirmary? Acting like these witches ain't got some like surveillance type stuff in these rooms? Knock it off. And, okay, hold on. She says, I want you, Eric. I want you even if it breaks me too. Eric caught my hand, blah, blah, blah. Tell me how you want me then. Tell me how to break you. And I said, hold on a second, yet again. This is what I mean. Okay, and so then they go on to describe this like spice scene between them, and it's not detailed literally at all. They like, I don't think there's a curse word in this book. There is not from my quick searching of the words I could think of immediately, there is not a single like curse word or spice word that is used in this book. So the next like spicy type scene it's not fade to black and it's not full on spice. It's like very kind of like suggestive or like innuendo-y of what happens. It walks like a very weird kind of line that I really haven't seen in a book in a long time, if ever, at least not in recent years. Very, very strange. And not necessarily in a bad way, but it was one of those like, either give me complete fade to black, like that's the extent of it, or give me like the full on like smutty stuff. Walking the weird in between line just made me cringe in such a way that I can't really explain. And that, again, that's like obviously totally like a personal preference, but I would much rather a fade to black scene. But I also think I'm weird in that way, so I'm acknowledging that wholeheartedly. Anyway, we cut to chapter 24. Their little fun time, they end up going to sleep. I guess it's the nighttime. They go to sleep for a little bit of it. The Green Witch comes in, wakes them up, dismisses him. He goes out to the stable so that he can like turn into a horse outside. She finished, giving her like the final like once over to make sure that her scabs and like stitches and scars and whatnot are all healed. And the Green Witch didn't do any like crazy magic to heal her, but instead just gave her body the ability to like expedite what it was going to be doing anyway, if that makes sense. So nothing crazy here. So nothing, like totally magical, just like improving what was already being done. The Green Witch also gives her a letter from the ambassador guy that we'll talk about in a minute. And the Green Witch also gives her like a different tonic to treat what she has and tells her like, hey, you're not broken. It's not some condition that you're suffering from. Like I was able to like kind of feel you and heal you and whatnot. And you're being poisoned by something. Maybe not directly, maybe not like doing it on purpose, but there's something poisoning you. And that's the reaction that your body is having. And that's why you can't take so much of like the tonics that you're currently taking. So here's this other version. This should take care of you and heal you up. Same thing though, just don't take too much of it. But I don't know, you and your husband, you guys can figure it out eventually. He's very smart and knows what he's talking about. And so she leaves this interaction with this knowledge, kind of confused by it, but also happy because maybe this isn't some like shortcoming that she has. Like maybe this isn't some crazy thing that's like her fault. It's preventable. It's something that can be treated and she can get better with. And so it's like a reassuring thing as well. But, so that's the good news. The bad news is the note from the ambassador saying that they're going through with the coronation, with or without him, because obviously they're assuming without him because everybody's assuming that he's dead. But on the day of the coronation, which is in like 2 days at this point, because of all of the derailing that they've had and how slow they've been going because he turns into a person, and, you know, they had to derail and stay here for a day or two because of her being sick. On the day of the coronation, they are going to crown Lord Varen, and he obviously takes this very, very hard. And then she says, but there's more. Maria has been arrested as a murder suspect. They found a blood-stained knife in her quarters. That's not possible. Eric's hands whitened on the stall door. It's a setup. How could she have murdered me? I'm not even dead, and even if I were, I know. I laced my fingers through his. I know she would never betray you. Everyone should know that. The entire court knows how close we are. Who gave the order to arrest her? It has to be Varen, I said. Maria knows that you're alive. She must have been causing trouble for him. She wouldn't let him take the throne from you without a fight. With that, they have to fight. And if anyone can stop this, it's them. In chapter 25, he turns into a horse and they make a freaking run for it. And she's, you know, flattered as they're going through all this, and she's just thinking in her head, and she's like, Eric, really, you know, he didn't disregard me for my flaws. Instead, he's been a sort of strength in me, one that I'd never realized that I possessed. His acceptance disarmed me more than any opposition could. He reached past my defenses, and I had let him, welcomed him. Against the logic of everything that I had been taught, I knew that wanting him was a blade that could be turned against me. To love someone was to throw down your shield and lay your heart bare and watch as it cut in two. Love? The word stopped my thoughts short, and she realizes, oh my God, it's been 3 days, but I think I love this man. And yet again, say it with me, girl, get up. Get up. But regardless, they arrive to the border. Her sister Tatiana is going to be there, and here they will find the answer to her husband's cure. Chapter 26. I don't even care. I'm so done with this book at this point. We're at the 70% mark, and it's about to get crazy. So I'm trying to expedite through this next part. 26 is literally just the three of them talking and yapping and bonding and having a good time and yada, yada, yada. Long story short, Tatiana says, girl, that was not the spell that I cast. He was only supposed to be a horse for a couple of hours. I think because you made it with the blood magic. You made it with the blood magic? When you opened up the locket, you did some crazy blood magic stuff that I can't undo because, like, I don't know blood magic. I don't work in that, so yikes. In chapter 27, she's like, Tatiana, I know you did not just tell me that you can't cure my husband. She says, I'm sorry, little bee. I would if I could, but what you've described, that's not the spell that I made. And then this is what I don't understand. So then I opened my palms, and now, crossed by gleaming gold stars, it was fortunate that I was already seated, for the chasm seemed to open beneath my feet. Bianca, Eric asked, what is it? I think I know what happened. When the assassin attacked and I cut my hands, Eric's eyes lit with understanding. Blood magic. It must have been combined with your sister's original enchantment. And then Tatiana says, blood magic, so it's not just a rumor? And I said, hold on a second. Did we not talk about this hello? I thought we already talked about blood magic. I thought we legitimately already had this conversation. What do you mean you're just now coming to the realization of it? Oh, dude, it pissed me off so bad when I was reading. Whatever. They talk. They yap. There's more discussion. She decides that she's going to go to bed because she's having another flare up of her condition. They have a little bit of a discussion with it. Like, she talks to Eric and she's like, have you seen anybody with this before? And he says, no, but we'll figure it out, baby. And she goes to bed. He stays behind to talk to Tatiana to try to figure out what they're going to do about this whole blood magic crazy spell thing, which I thought is I thought we already figured this out. I'm still so upset that the fact that they're acting like this is like a new piece of information, but what do I know? It's literally all just repeating itself. The only thing I have highlighted is when she's going to bed that night, her sister gives her a hug, And her sister says, I really am sorry about the curse. I only wanted to protect you. Though perhaps you didn't need my protection as much as I thought. Look at you. You're hardly a little bee anymore. You're a queen. And my note says, girly, it has been 6 days. It's like, obviously the boat ship trip that they had took like a week or two or whatever. And then it's been 6 days. We're at less than a month, no matter what type of numbers and rounding and whatnot that you want to have. It's been less than a month. What do you mean? You're hardly a little bee anymore. Shut up. Shut up. I'm so mad about it. So cut to blah, blah, blah. She's half asleep. Eric eventually comes to bed and he's not able to go to sleep. He's obviously has a lot on his mind. And so she says, hey baby, what's going on? And he's like, what if it's not really worth it? Like, what if all of this stuff that we're going through, what if we just let Varen take the throne? Like, is there another way to save Maria and you get your, like, people, your little soldiers and Julieta? Is it possible to get them back? And, like, should I just let Varen take the throne? I stared at him, taken aback. Why? He's always been so much better suited to being a courtier, and I'm no king. I'm not good enough to rule, not good enough to marry, too soft, too interested in books, not interested enough in the maneuvering and manipulations that make a powerful ruler. All in all, a worthless heir. My fists clenched on the sheets. I'd heard such sentiments enough to be certain that these words were not of his own. He was repeating what someone else had told him. Who said those things to you? I demanded. If they'd been in the room, I would have challenged them to a duel. A muscle in Eric's jaw feathered. A woman who knew what it meant to rule. Being his mother! And so she comes to the realization, got it. That's why he always gets so weird when the mom thing gets brought up. She was a terrible person. And so she, I guess, finally comes to the realization, somehow, some way, this dummy comes to the realization of, oh my God, he's insecure and has grown up feeling as inadequate as I always have. And this is something that we could really bond over. And we've always experienced this twisted love. And we know how this twisted love from family members can hurt. And oh my God, I love you so much. Blah, 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 right? Like they have this like bonding moment, whatever. But eventually she's like, hey, you can't let him be the king because, like, meanwhile, like, we could run away and have our own lives and do our own thing and go into exile together and live a happy life and everything would be great. But meanwhile, Varen would use his newfound power to wreak destruction on his own land, expanding the iron mines, logging the forests, decimating whatever magical creatures remained in these wild woods, using those resources to build an army. It had all been spelled out in the treaty, with the terms broken, and apparently by a Damarian hand, Varen would have any excuse to demand recompense, even go to war. Treaty being broken by a Damarian hand being if she is the one who is accused of murdering the king, then he can say that the treaty got broken and then now he's available to do whatever he wants. And so the assumption at this point is that that's why he did it, was so that he could like break the treaty and do X, Y, and Z. I don't know, whatever, we'll get to it later. She ends up being like, no, baby, you're meant to be a king. You would rule so much better and you would be so awesome. And they end up being like, oh my God, you're so hot and we'd be such good rulers together. Blah, 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 blah. Spice scene. What else do I need to mention? When she first saw her sister mentioned a spit bucket? A spittoon? What is it called? I think it was a spittoon. And she called it like a 7 leagues travel machine. We'll talk about it later, but it got brought up now, so I need to tell you now so it doesn't seem like it came out of nowhere in a bit. And then the next morning they wake up. He wanders out to the stables again because he knows that he's about to turn into a horse. So he's out in the stables, he hides, they like pay off the little stable girl to leave. And so it's the 3 of them hanging out in here yapping, waiting for him to turn into a horse. And all of a sudden, she sees a flicker of movement out of the corner of her eye. A flash of light, a sound like an explosion heard through muffled ears, a heavy thud from the stall behind me, and then a white horse rose to all 4 legs, vigorously shaking his mane. The shadow filling the stable door, I thought, was some type of new effect of the spell, but then the shadow split into 2, and then 3, and then more, and as the after image of the enchantment's flash cleared from my vision, the truth became clear. 5 strangers dressed in knee-length black coats in the Gildheim style, each bearing a saber at their hip. An iron fist squeezed my heart tight with dread. The centermost stranger, a woman around my mother's age, leaned forward to peer into the stable. As Tatiana and I stared back, her gaze cut across us like a knife. "That's her," the woman said. "The king's wife. Seize her." What the hell? So they got recognized at this inn, because they are still in Gildheim. They got recognized at the inn as the king's wife, the murderer, the terrible woman. And so they're all about to arrest them. And obviously, he just turned into a freaking horse, so there's nothing that he can do to, like, prevent the situation. So that sucks. I put my little jacket back on because I got cold. Don't judge me if you're watching visually. It's 8:30 at night. I'm a chilly little lady. I'm supposed to be taking a shower and going to bed right now. And instead, I'm trying to knock out these last... What are we at? 10? No, please. 10 chapters? Oh my god. I have to finish this tonight. We're at 75%. I have 25% left. Let me, like, put this shit into 5th gear. We're gonna have to get through this, my guy. Good god. How long is this video? I'm so sorry. Maybe. So, chapter 28. So, these people, they're like, oh my god, it's the king's wife. We need to go and get her. Obviously, a horseman can't do shit. He's just, like, over here in the stable not being able to do nothing. Sorry, I stepped away for a minute. Sorry. I stepped away for a second and I had a phone call with one of my friends from back home. Okay, let me rein it back in. Let me go back to talking normal. Anyway, horseman over here in the stable, he can't do nothing, right? Because obviously he's a horse. And so Tatiana, though, she says, oh my god, Bianca, get the heck out of here, and pushes her through like a backdoor exit of the stable and tells her to run. And Bianca, telepathically with horseman, Eric, he's saying, girl, run! Get up, get out of here. What are you doing? And tells her to just go. He's like, I'll be fine. Just go home. Like, pretty much like cross the border into Demaria. These people aren't going to chase you over the border. So just cross the bridge over to Demaria and you'll be safe. Go home, like XYZ, figure it out. Everything will be fine. Protect yourself. She does. She makes a run for it. It's her duty. It's what she's told. So it's what she was told to do. And so she'll execute it because that's all she knows how to do. Except she runs and she gets to the border and she sees the crossing and there's a couple guards and whatnot. And she's realizing this is kind of weird. There was no alarms that got sounded. There's nobody chasing her. There's no immediate threat like there should be. So she's like, I don't know what's happening, but something feels wrong. And she thinks a little bit more and she's like, I don't care what my duty is. My duty to my country and to my family and to protect them and to maintain, you know, whatever. I don't care about any of that. I care about Eric and I need to get back to him no matter what. And so she decides to turn around. This is like the first decision that she has ever made of her own volition. This is the first decision where she says, this is me, Bianca, choosing to do something. And she's choosing to go back and get Eric. Treks her way back into town. She ends up back at the inn, back at the stables at the inn. Eric's gone. Tatiana's gone. The little girl who's like the stable hand that they paid off earlier to go and leave, she's back asking the stable hand girl like what happened and where the horse is. And the stable girl says, yeah, that woman that was in here earlier, she looked just like you. Apparently that was like the queen of Arnhelm, Gildheim. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? That was the queen of the king who killed him. That's the queen of the king. She's the one that killed him and they took her away. They threw her in the back of a freaking thing and they drove her back to go and prosecute her. She says, oh my god, okay, got it. So Tatiana like took the L for me, like she took my place. Okay, where's the white horse? She says, oh, they like sold that horse off immediately to like this really, really bad horse trader guy. Like he treats his animals absolutely terribly. It's really, really sad actually. Bianca says, okay, got it. Okay, that sucks. And she starts looking around because she's like, did they leave anything behind? Did they drop anything? Like maybe they left me a message. The stable hand girl says, no, they didn't leave anything, but my brother He's responsible for cleaning the rooms, and he hasn't gone up there yet, but he has the keys if you want to go back into their rooms in the inn and see if they left anything there. She's like, the guards went through it, but apparently all they did was turn over some stuff and maybe took a couple coins, but they like didn't take anything. Like, maybe you'll find what you're looking for there. The little girl like walks her back up there, and she tells the little girl that she's like the bastard daughter of the queen, and that's why they look so much alike. And they met there to talk about XYZ to help her escape, and then they got caught, and obviously the little girl doesn't know that the white horse is the king, so that's how she's like covering for this. You know what I'm saying? She's just pretending that she's just some like unrelated side character that was trying to help the queen escape, and tells the little girl that she'll take care of her if she like helps her out in this particular instance. So the little girl agrees to it, obviously. So anyway, she's up in these rooms. What is she looking for? She doesn't even know. She doesn't know what she's looking for either. She's just snooping around, hoping something, you know, Marie Kondo style, like just speaks to her soul. Something does. And do you know what does in her sister's room? What speaks to her is a fire poker. Like, you know, like those, like for the fireplace, like you got those like little sticky pokies that you stick in there to like make the fire go bigger. That might have been the most ignorant sentence that I have ever said in my life, but you know what I'm saying. We'll circle back. Dude, I am so mad. I was at work. Long story short, I got a standing desk instead of a sitting desk, and everybody thought that I got a new chair instead of a desk. It's such like 9-to-5 corporate office cubicle hell bullshit. But everybody was like, "Oh my God, Kaylee, you got a new chair." And I said, "No, this is the chair I've been had. What are y'all talking about?" And they said, "Been had? What do you mean been had?" And I was like, "What do you mean? How else would you have phrased, I've had this chair for a long time?" And that's what they said. They said, I would have said, I had that chair for a long time. And I think that that's ignorant. I think that that is a very long and stupid way when I could just say, I've been had it. And that gets the point across. Everybody looked at me like I was dumb. I was very upset by it, actually. It's still bothering me 2 weeks later. Because, like, obviously I'm like from the South, and I'm in the North. I'm in like the Midwest now. And so there's like some translations that get lost. And that was one of them. And it really upset me. I was like, you guys, I know I'm in a corporate environment in the Midwest, but I feel like you should understand my Southern slang. And they don't. And I was really mad. And I just feel stupid and I hate it. Anyway, so she's looking through all this stuff. And so what does she find? She finds this fire poker, and she's like, okay, well, this is about the closest thing that I'm going to get to a sword. So she takes that with her. The other thing that she finds is that, like, spit bucket, the spittoon. Is that what it was called? I'm making up words at this point because I don't remember and I don't really care to look it up. But she finds the travel thing. So the whole idea, and obviously this will be relevant in a minute, but with this spittoon, I feel like this is similarly shaped. So I'll grab it. So the idea is, if you hold it in such a way where you grasp it, sorry for any visual people, it's like a little bucket, and if you hold the side and you walk, it'll automatically like almost teleport you 7 leagues in that direction. And it was this thing that her sister developed because she wanted to be able to be like 7 leagues away from her parents at any given time whenever they would like talk crap to her. And so she made it. And so that's how Tatiana had gotten to this like hotel thing on the border area so quickly, because she used this like teleporter thing. So Bianca, having half a brain, makes sure that she grabs it, throws it in her backpack, and she treks along because she's like, okay, well, I'm going to grab this. I'm going to make sure that I take this with me because this is going to be important later. So throws it in her backpack. And in chapter 30, she decides that before she can get her sister, who is obviously like on a little horse thing being taken back to the kingdom, she first needs to go and save Eric, taken by the horse trader guy. So she goes through town. She talks to the little girl again, gets the information about where he hangs out during the day. And homie's getting drunk and like making bets at this like particular tavern. So she rolls up. She storms in. Everybody looks at her crazy. She recognizes the guy immediately and immediately goes over to him. I stopped a pace away from the table and waited His companions glanced up at me and then away. The merchant himself didn't acknowledge my presence, though he must have known that I was there. I knew what a snub looked like. I'd seen it 100 times at the court. Very well. I was conversant in 5 spoken tongues in basic sign. I could speak a language that he understood. I raised the poker and slammed it down on the table inches away from his face. Ceramic shattered, beer sprayed, soaking the merchant's beard and double it. His companions made themselves scarce, their expressions avowing that they wanted no part of this. The merchant himself roared with anger and started to his feet, his face purpling. I lifted the poker to point at his throat. I wouldn't, I said in Demarian, my voice like flint. The tavern had fallen silent. All eyes were on us now. I sensed curiosity more than hostility, but my back still prickled a warning. That's an iron fire. Exactly. If I'm unreasonable enough to confront you with a poker, just imagine how much damage I'm willing to do with it. I said, oh, I actually like this main character. That was the moment. That was the redeeming moment for me where I said, oh, she's actually like kind of a badass. I actually kind of love her for that. And so anyway, he ends up being a dick to her. She ends up, it's like back and forth, back and forth. She mollywops him on the back of the head with this like poker. And he ends up taking her to the stables where the horses are. She says, take me there. You bought my horse this morning. Take me to where he is right now. So he does. He opens the door to the stables, follows her behind, shuts it immediately, and starts to attack her. She, again, mollywops, hits him as hard as possible with this poker. He passes out, haunches over on the floor, and she makes a run for it through these stables, trying to find her pony. She finds him. He's at the very last stall, and he has like rope wrapped around his mouth, and his feet are tied together, and he's like bucking wildly, and she's like, Eric, it's me. And he's like, oh my God, what's her name? He says, oh my God, Bianca, you're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be in Demaria by now. Oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I came back for you, my love. And so she like cuts him free. And then he's like, we have to leave. Because like the bells and like the alarms or whatever in the city are going off, and they hear voices because somebody at the like bar pub thing reported them to the guard. I don't know, something. They're pretty much, somebody called, some rat, some snitch called the cops. And so she's like, I know we need to get out of here. We have to leave, but first, let me do this. And she ends up going and like freeing all of the other horses that are in this stable, because she's like, this guy's a monster. What a D-bag, the way that he holds all of you hostage and like obviously like chains them all up, basically. She's like, I'm not letting this go. So she like opens up all the stalls and cuts all the horses free, mounts Eric, and then they go riding off into the sunset. We were miles from the village before I dared to slow. The escape of the other horses should have obscured our tracks. I doubted the town guard would pursue us far, but I was taking no more chances. I had already lost enough in a single day. And so they get to a point and she's like, hey, Eric, like you need to stop. Obviously, you got the ever-loving crap beat out of you by this guy. Like he's all like in horse form. He's all bruised and scarred up and bloodied and stuff. And so she's like, you obviously were very, very mistreated in the last couple of hours that I left you alone. You have to like stop. And so eventually he ends up like laying down, blah, blah, blah. He turns into a human. His wounds are still present on his human body. She tries to tend to them, and then he pushes back, and it's this like whole back and forth. And then she's like, he says, Bianca, you came back. Why? You were safe. You were supposed to escape, not come running back to danger. I thought I'd never see you again. I allowed myself to fall into his gaze. His eyes were a summer afternoon after a heavy storm. Because I love you, I was thinking. I opened my mouth to say it, and then I pressed my lips together, hesitating, as the cautions I had heard 1,000 times crowded my mind. I had never told someone else that I loved them. Not like this. I knew Eric wanted me, cared for me, but was it too soon to offer him the entirety of my heart? You came back for your sister. No, Eric, I came back for you. But why? I'm not worth it. I've never been worth it. I've only proved that to you again this morning. My hands curled tight around his collar as if I could keep him from distancing himself that way. I don't know what you mean. I'm weak, Bianca, Eric said, his voice bitter. I can barely hold a sword the right way. I'm not fit to rule. Your life was in danger, and there was nothing I could do to save you. You could do anything. Be anything you put your mind to. Why would you want to give the world up for me? Listen to me, Eric. You've been cursed and threatened. You were nearly killed thrice over. You've risked your life for a crown you don't even want, all to keep your country safe. Most people would simply give up, yet you've never wavered. There's more than one way of being strong. You've shown me that. And how is it giving up the world to choose the one thing I want in it the most? Aww. And so he's like, okay, so like, what now? So we set things straight. We rescue my sister, stop the coronation, and undo the curse. About that last one, I think I have an idea. My hand tightened on his. Tell me. Eric's thumbs traced pensive circles around my knuckles. Tatiana and I discussed it at length, and I don't want to falsely raise your hopes, but I think she could use the coronation to undo the curse. Despite his caveat, hope immediately flared sun-bright in my chest. How? The crown itself is a powerful magical artifact. During the coronation ritual, it's activated using blood magic, similar to what happened when you accidentally combined your blood with Tatiana's enchantment. I won't go into the theoretical details, but if Tatiana crowns me, she should be able to use my blood and the crown's power to unravel the curse. But it's only a chance, and a slim one, and it would have to happen at exactly sunrise. Then we'll make it happen at sunrise. And he's like, I don't think that we're going to be able to do that. It's literally happening like tomorrow. It's a journey that would take us days, and this coronation's happening in like a matter of hours. Wait! I dove for the satchel that I had taken from Tatiana's chambers. In it, I'd hastily packed anything that I thought might be useful. The Green Witch's tincture, like for her like condition stuff, and a bag of peppermints, which is also for her stomach stuff, a set of travel clothes that I had found in Tatiana's luggage, the poker, and an enameled, enchanted cuspidor. I held the 7-league spittoon. Eric, how many leagues is it to Arnhelm? Chapter 31. It's 50 leagues to Arnhelm. Eric had estimated approximately 7 magical steps. This was probably a terrible idea, but it was the kind of idea that Tatiana loved best. And it's also the only idea that y'all mother frickers have. So what else can we do? And so the rest of this chapter is them like very sketchily trying to like hold this spittoon. So again, if you're not visual, you can hold it normal, like as if you were to like hold a cup. But if you want to travel with the spittoon, you like grip it like by the lip in such a way. And so they grip it together over the lip, and then they take a step, and it like teleports them 7 leagues into the distance. And so they make sure that they are like holding each other in such a way that they like won't let go. They step forward, she stumbles back, so they fling backwards, and then he catches her, and then they step forward again, and it's this whole back and forth. Long story short, at the end of the chapter, they end up in Arnhelm, the slums of the like castle city area thing. So they made it, and now they just have to walk through the city to get to the castle to interrupt the coronation so he can become king. Yay. And she pukes in a gutter because of all the traveling. But they made it. Magic saved the day yet again. How cool. That's so awesome. They're making their way downtown, walking fast, faces past, and they're homebound. Homebound to a trapdoor that leads them into the castle. So they end up in this little spot, this trapdoor. It has like the emblem of the castle or whatever. It's more blood magic. He like pricks his finger, drops some blood on it. Trapdoor opens. They go into it. They end up in a tunnel system. Very, very unused, very much cobwebs, very much mildew. It's giving gross and unused space. So she's hesitant, but obviously they don't have a choice. They end up in the tunnel system. Obviously, this leads into the castle tunnel system that she and Maria was using earlier when they went through and like tried to find the ambassador the first time. So it's got kind of referenced, kind of cool, kind of like a follow through of like plot and general stuff that's like happening in the castle. Blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Whatever. They're going through the castle. They're going to specifically the like prison system that's at the end of the castle, like the dungeons where everybody's being kept, so they can find all of her people. They can find Julieta, they can find, you know, Catalina, all of her other guards and like her other people that came with her to Gildheim, and he can find Maria. Okay, great. They find them. Everything's awesome. Everybody's so excited to have them. The guard, I guess, doesn't come down there very often or something. I don't know. Somehow they like don't get caught and there's no issues whatsoever. And he, yet again, instead of having keys to unlock them, he's able to use his blood magic to unlock each of these locks to these doors and gets them all free from the cells. And everything's cool. Everybody's happy to see them. Everybody's great. So happy that he's alive. So happy that they've all, you know, survived and doing good things, and everybody's in good spirits, except for the fact that Julieta's not around. Hasn't been seen since the wedding. She helped Bianca get ready, and then she has been completely MIA since. So, like, immediately after the whole assassination attempt, all of her people got rounded up and, like, immediately sent to this, like, jail cellar thing happening. She's never been accounted for. And so she's terrified immediately. She's like, oh my God, actually, this is horrendous. I'm so scared for her safety. I don't know what's happening. Like, we have to get to the bottom of this. However, there's like bigger fish to fry, essentially. So they all get together. They get a game plan of what they could possibly be doing. Maria is excited to, what is the quote here? Run some people through. And I can't look it up specifically of how many times that Maria makes this reference of, I'm gonna run through you, or I'll run these people through, or like XYZ. Run through is used in this book, but it is like 87 times too many. To be frank, with such a specific quote, probably more than 3 is too many times, and it was definitely used more than like 8. It was every single time that this character was introduced, she was like, I'm such a badass, and I'm gonna run people through, and I'm gonna show how strong I am and demolish you. And yet again, I'm back to the fact of every character doesn't need to repeat the exact same quote. There's other ways to convey things. There's other things to even make reference to the exact same quote in different, more creative ways with more meaning. And it, again, just pissed me off because I'm back to the fact that this book, and I know, you're like, Kaylee, we have 2 more chapters left. Shut the fuck up. No, my issue is that, like, so often in this book, I'm like, these are such cool characters. These are such cool ideas, and they get so overplayed and so repeated and so, I guess repeated is the only word, to the point that it feels childish, or like it's such a good idea and then you tell me it so many times again and again and again that all of a sudden it feels shallow. You don't give me time to come to my own conclusions or like build up a character in any other way, that a character with an immediate trait that could be deep and lead to like a more meaningful connection with them, you somehow make them shallow by literally repeating the exact same phrase instead of like expounding upon what or why or how the character is the way that they are, or like another example of them doing something. It's just very shallow character development. Maybe that's what it all kind of boils down to in this book, is like all of the theories are good, but the actual like execution is so shallow, which I feel so bad saying. Like, again, there were parts of this book that were so good, and I genuinely actually enjoyed parts of this book and like ideas in this book that were just like, I don't know if it was the wrong publisher, the wrong editor, if it needed some more time to cook. I don't know what it was about this book. It had so much potential, and I felt like it fell so freaking flat. So anyway, long story short, everybody's broken free from jail, and now the plan is, well, now what do we do? They obviously have to stop the coronation. They have to prove to everybody that Eric is alive. They have to clear Bianca's name, and they have to somehow like discredit Lord Byron and everything else. Like, figure out where Julieta is, do XYZ. Like, there's a lot happening right now that they have to do in these last chapters. All of a sudden, in the middle of all of this, Eric's voice was low but cutting. If I may make a suggestion, there's a critical point that you are all forgetting. We don't actually need to kill anybody for any of this. in reference to Maria saying that she will run through people. We just need to get the crown and Tatiana and give her the opportunity to crown me before Varen can go through with the coronation. I exchanged a sheepish look with Catalina. Here we were focused on how to spill the most blood, missing the point entirely. Please, I said, continue. The coronation ceremony has 2 parts, Eric said. It ends with the monarch entering the throne room to be formally recognized by the court. But before that, there's a private ritual in the council chamber where the new monarch takes an oath to protect the realm and its wild places. The dignitary then brings in the crown and facilitates the blood magic ritual, but only after the monarch has taken their vows. We could get the crown before Varen does, and Eric could meet Tatiana and undo the curse without having to fight Varen at all. Showing up already crowned before the entire court instead of confronting Varen in a more private setting would be a much stronger and safer tactic. It was a desperate shot, and the timing was tight, but if we played it precisely, we're going to need to stop that carriage before Duchess Tatiana reaches the castle, Maria said, and we'll need a distraction to keep Varen busy until after dawn. If he realizes the crown is missing, he'll summon the guards in full force. I have an idea. Eric looked at me, but I don't think any of us are going to like it. And this is where I got so excited because I said,
There's shenanigans afoot. I love shenanigans.
I love shenanigans. Give me some crazy nonsense. What are you about to do? And this is where I'm so mad because I'll just tell you. So the whole point though, right? So Tatiana, which they know is Tatiana, Lord Varen and the rest of the court do not. Literally everybody else in the entire world thinks that it is going to be Bianca. Correct? Correct. So the idea is several hours later, Eric, Catalina, and Maria all have their own pieces of the plan, but we are from the POV of Bianca, and it's not much longer until sunrise. Any moment now, Varen would arrive to begin the private coronation ritual, not suspecting that Eric and Catalina were making their way out of the castle with the crown to rendezvous with Maria, my guards, and my sister, all of them relying on me to keep Varen occupied until Tatiana had broken Eric's curse. So they're going to steal the crown. They're going to go through this ritual. She's in these like hidden halls, right? These like hidden corridors. She's in one of them looking through a little picture eye hole, seeing like what's happening in this like little room thing that's going on. Again, and I'm not going to lie to you. Sorry, I know I just mumbled that so badly. I don't know what's happening. I'm not going to lie. Nothing that happens over the next 13% of the book. I don't know what the frickin' heckin' bob happens. But she, waiting in this hall, looking at these people, waiting for something to happen. Eventually, Lord Varen comes in. The council members come in. There are soldiers and soldiers and soldiers, so many more than she ever expected, come into this room. Each of them stand by each of the like dignitaries from each of these things, and there's just a very threatening aura going on. Her stomach, her condition has a flare-up. She pops a mint though, and everything's gonna be okay, but she's like really, really scared that that's what's gonna like force her out of her hiding. But she's like, a hot wave of pain surged through my core. I bit down a gasp, and I braced myself against the wall. The most critical moment, and my weakness threatened to undo me. My parents had been right after all. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't strong enough. Simply wasn't enough of anything I was meant to be. You are strong, Bianca, stronger than I think you know. Eric's words. Eric, who had seen me at my weakest and called me strong, not because I pretended to be, because I already was. It was time to prove him right. I drew in a steady breath, and then I lifted my head, set my shoulders, and cleared pain from my face as I had 1,000 times before, not hiding my weakness, but reveling the strength that burned within my core. I reached for the door and I flung it open. Stop. My words, spoken in Gildheim, rang through the shocked courtroom. I am Duchess Bianca Lillian, Flower of Demaria, and this coronation must not proceed. And I said, girl, what the fuck? All transparency here, right? So she's watching from this little eye hole. She's watching as this is happening. The court comes in. They're making the final coronation thing of like,
Lord Varen, blah, blah, blah.
everybody's agreeing to it. Like, everybody has to like raise their hands and agree to the conclusion that he's like the rightful heir to the throne, blah blah blah. It's like all of the ambassadors from all of the other like areas, country, towns, cities, I don't care, all the people. What do you want from me? Again, what do you want from me? All of these folks that have to aye captain are all in the room together. And so she interrupts it at the very, very last second. And that's what leads us into chapter 34. She busts out of the door. She says all of this. Everybody goes quiet. They're all like looking at her all crazy. Varen approaches her and he says, I advise you consider your words carefully, Your Grace. A certain Demarian guest was admitted to the castle a short while ago. You want to make sure that she's well cared for, don't you? Tatiana. I forced myself not to visibly react, but my nails bit into my palms. This wasn't how our plan was meant to unfold. Maria and her guards should have intercepted my sister before she reached the castle. They must have been too late. My mind raced, searching for a way out of this trap. If Maria hadn't managed to rescue Tatiana, where were the captain and her guards now? If Varen had Tatiana, what would Eric do with the crown? Drama, 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 crazy, 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 internal thoughts. And he eventually says, hey, so how about I don't kill your sister if you make a public statement right now saying that you were wrong, that everything that you just said was a lie and you take it back? And she's like, well, shit, I guess I really don't have a choice, considering I feel like you actually would kill my sister and I am surrounded by swords right now, so I don't really have a choice. Nobles of Gildheim, I began, but before I could get any further, tramping feet and rattling metal turned all heads to the courtroom doors. Out of the way! A woman dressed in the uniform of the royal guard pushed past the soldiers at the door. The crowd parted to make way. Behind her, a pair of guards appeared in the entrance, flanking two people with hands bound behind their backs. One, a dark-haired woman, eyes flashing as she struggled against her captors. The other, a man, pale as winter morning, offering no resistance as the soldiers hauled him forwards. Eric and Catalina. My heart dropped to the floor and shattered. No, they weren't meant to be here, not like this, uncrowned and captive. I fought to keep the horror off of my face as the guards dragged Eric and Catalina the length of the courtroom and threw them to their knees before Varen. Whispers exploded around us like gunshots. Is that? Surely it couldn't be. The heir apparent is... Varen stood abruptly. Lightning crackled through his voice. Why have you brought them here? We found them in your personal chambers, my lord. The soldier who entered first spoke again. Just as you anticipated, they were trying to steal the crown. Oh shit. Oh no. Oh no. So he starts to talk about some nonsense, saying how like you never should have brought them in here. This is so crazy. This is a personal matter. Get them out of here. We'll deal with it later. Like this is an entirely separate matter. They get interrupted. My Lord Varen. A man's smooth tones accented with the lingering syllables of the Demarian tongue. I knew that voice. Both Varen and I looked up as Avito de Paz, which is the ambassador. I'm never going to say it right. As the ambassador walked toward us, his hands were easy at his side, his eyes bright and calculating. Perhaps I can be of service in this discussion. A look passed between him and Varen that I couldn't read. Apprehension stirred in my stomach as I recalled my earlier doubts about the ambassador. Varen nodded curtly. You may stay. Because he kicked literally everybody else out of the room because he said it was a personal matter. But he says, except for you, ambassador guy. And then obviously Catalina and Eric and Bianca. This is what will happen. In a few minutes, I'm going to summon my advisors back into the room. When they arrive, you, Eric, will confess to murdering our dearest mother. You will formally and totally renounce your claim to the throne and give your blessing to my coronation. Tomorrow, you will be executed for regicide and treason. And you, Bianca Lillian, Flower of Demaria, you will sign a revised version of the treaty on behalf of the Council of the Nine, binding our nations together and expanding trade for a mutually successful alliance, as per the original terms. A treaty sealed by your marriage to the new king of Gildheim. I.e., she'll have to marry him, and she says... And she is freaking out but can't react before Eric does. And he says, no, she will not. And why is that? Varen asks. Because if those are your terms, I'll agree to none of your conditions. I'll die denouncing you as stridently as I can. People will believe me. Perhaps not all of them, but enough to undermine your claim to the throne. You might have supporters now, but will they still support a bastard who murdered his own kin to clear the way to power? A muscle worked in Varen's jaw. You speak as if you have a choice. I could simply have you killed right now in the privacy of this room. Eric's gaze didn't waver. Your closest advisors all saw me taken in. The rumors will have reached half the court by now. Without my public confession, your word is worthless. Varen drummed his fingers on the armrests. What does it matter to you what happens to Bianca? You'll be executed either way. Cooperating will spare you a good deal of unnecessary pain. Because I love her. Eric said quietly. He turned to me, seeking my gaze, and I will do anything it takes to protect her from you, even if it means facing whatever tortures you may contrive. Oh my God. And so she says, in the middle of all of this, she says, hey, you know what? Actually, I think I need a moment. With the Demaria ambassador guy. She's like, hey, I need to talk to him real quick. So she does. Pulls him off to the side of the room. They have like a little, as much as you possibly can, like a private conversation. And she says, you are the ambassador. You are Demaria's ambassador to Gildheim, and you have failed abominably at your role. Tell me exactly what you and Lord Varen are playing at before I cut you a new mouth, one that can negotiate better than your current orifice. He says, I understand your anger, ma'am. Like, I know we never expected Lord Varen to blame you for the assassination attempt, but if that was the case, like, we would have ensured that our operative would have waited for a better opportunity. I assure you, my deepest loyalty and commitment is to the council and to House Liliana. And she says, hold on, you sent the assassin? He looks confused, and he says, of course, Your Grace, as per House Liliana's orders. Oh my God. And she realizes, of course, I'd thought that Varen had arranged the assassin to frame Demaria and take the throne, but I should have guessed from the terms of the treaty that it was crafted in part by Demarian hand. The same trade that had lifted my country to power was always hungry for wood and iron, for ships, for fuel, for the Adept's newest weapons. Varen was part of the plot, and he'd been all too happy to take up the crown, but he hadn't worked alone. The irony, Demaria and Gildheim truly had been partners in this, all too willing to sacrifice Eric and me to their ploy. And so she fires him, like, on the spot. She says, get out of my face. It's like, honestly, like, so stupid and cheesy. And so she comes back from after this discussion with him, and she says, hey, look, Eric, yeah, I'll marry you under the condition that you release, Captain Catalina Espada, like her teenage lover. You release her, Julieta, all of my people, my sister, like pretty much everybody from Demaria. Send all of my loved ones home. Let all of them go. Let Eric will make the confession that you wish, but send him into exile. He'll never bother you again, but don't kill him. And I'll be your wife, and we'll renegotiate anything that you want. Catalina started to protest. Eric starts to protest everything, but she interrupts, and she's like, shut up. Let me do what I need to do. Varen thinks it all through, and he says, what do I gain from this alternative solution? I have no guarantee that the council will see things the same way that you do. And she says, you'll be known as a just and merciful king, the sort of monarch the Council of Nine would be pleased to call an ally. I hardened my voice slightly, a subtle threat. I might remind you that the council's agreement is necessary for the treaty to be ratified, and as noted, I represent the council. He's thinking this over, thinking, and he says, Eric, he says he loves you. You don't return the sentiment? It's touching, but I've always known that love is a weakness. I dredged up every ounce of bitterness that I'd allowed it to fester throughout my life, letting it drip from my words. Like the council, I recognize the right alliance when I see it. I've studied my history, Lord Varen. I know what kind of man makes a good king, and I know exactly what kind of man my husband is. And she's just thinking, like, I hope that he's able to see through my words and know that I don't mean what I'm saying. I hope he understands the true meaning of what I'm saying right now, because I love Eric so much, right? Like, just some dumb shit like that. And so he says, okay, cool. You know what? Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Actually, I think this is a great idea. He says, take the prisoners away. I'll deal with them later, and call the courtiers back in. We've had enough delays in this coronation. A coronation? A voice cut in from behind us. Don't you need a crown for that? The guards' hands sprang to their weapons. The entire room turned to look in unison. Standing beside the spyway entrance were a dozen soldiers in full armor, Eric's personal guard. In their midst stood Maria, saber drawn, her expression promising a painful death to anyone who opposed her. And beside her, my sister, beaming as brightly as if she'd just arrived at her own birthday celebration, twirling an ornamental golden crown from the tip of her finger. The crown of Gildheim. So they weren't caught. It was all a lie. Did they break free from being captured? Did he just like speak a bunch of BS to like make her complacent or compliant with like his offerings? Was it a fake thing? Like, are he and are Catalina and Eric not actually under arrest right now, but it was like a staged arrest by the whoever? What exactly is happening right now? You know what I mean? I'm a little confused. I'm not going to lie to you, but that's okay. In chapter 35, Tatiana, I wish I had something that I could be like twirling on my finger like how she is right now with the crown, waved cheerfully at Varen, dangling the crown from her fingertips. Looking for this? And then she wobbled, hiccuped, and dropped the crown, which bounced on the carpet and rolled across the floor toward Varen. I stared, torn between relief and horror. Was my sister drunk? Seize them, Varen snapped, and get the crown. And so this ends up turning into like the most cheesy, stupid, horrific fight scene that I have like ever heard or read in my entire life. That the entire time I was like literally rolling my eyes and like hating everything that happened, where it's like they're all diving across and having these fights, and the sister catches the crown and she chucks it across and she says, Bianca, catch. She hurled the crown in my direction. It spun through the air like a blur as Tatiana is like throwing the crown to Bianca, and she catches it and she's like, you have to do it. Pretty much like she has to crown Eric because the sun is starting to rise. It doesn't happen fast enough. She catches the crown, and then there's a flash of bright white, and all of a sudden he turns into a horse, and the sun had risen. We had failed to break the curse. Uh-oh. So she stops, like she doesn't try anymore. And Tatiana is being attacked by the brother, by Lord Varen. And she says, you get away from me, you ugly frog. And like hits him. He like kind of bursts into white, and there's like some weird spell stuff that happens with him. And so then eventually he like gets up, he recovers from this like attack from Tatiana. He gets up and he says, he stopped looking puzzled and put a hand to his throat, coughed and tried again. Give me the croak. Croak? Wait, croak. Wait, frog noise? Wait, frog croak noise. Ribbit. Hold on, what does it sound like? Yeah, sure. Okay, so he says, give me the... like cricket? Cricket? Croak? I don't know how to make that noise. I hope you were able to hear the YouTube noise for it. So he starts ribbiting because she called him a frog. So now he makes frog noises. That was part of the curse thing that she casted upon him. And so now we have a horse and we have a frog man. Cool. Bunch of pushback and threats and back and forth and whatever. And so Eric, in his little brain-to-brain speak that he has with Bianca, he says, look, dude, it's too late. Just let Varen take the crown. She says, but you're the king. You're my husband. I'm the heir. I'm only the heir apparent. I haven't been crowned, and I won't be your husband for much longer. Eric, No, I don't want to divorce you, and I certainly don't want to marry Varen instead. I never have. I agreed to those terms to save you, not because I wanted you gone. And I would just like to remind you that in this moment, nobody else can hear him speaking. Nobody else has really like put it together that he's the horse guy, other than obviously like Maria and Tatiana. And so to like everybody else in the room, like this girl just looks crazy as hell right now. All like hair, all like forehead to forehead with a horse.
I love you.
I stepped closer to him. I put my arms around his neck and I pressed my face to his shoulder, not caring that everyone could see my vulnerability. I love you, Eric. I didn't come back because of duty. I came back for you because I chose you exactly as you are. But we might never break the curse now. Do you think I care? Of course I want you as a man. Of course I want the curse to be broken, but I know how it feels to have a part of yourself that you can't control. If that doesn't stop you from loving me, then why should it lessen my love for you? I feel like we should not be comparing IBS to being turned into a horse. What do you... What do you mean? Please, for the love of God. I just don't feel like that's appropriate. And so Maria, listening to all of this, she says, Your Majesty, sun is almost above the horizon. Wait. I lifted my head from Eric's neck and hope flickered bright and devastating in my chest. Maria was right. The courtroom afforded an unbroken view of the eastern horizon. Beyond the walls of Arnhelm, below the cloud line, a thin golden sliver of sun still gleamed against the mountains, just on the verge of lifting, free of their peaks, which meant, even though Eric had already transformed, that sunrise wasn't over. Not quite yet. Thoughts began to tumble through my mind, an avalanche set into motion. A spell of equal power. Keyed to the royal family's blood, I seal these vows with my blood. The crown pulsed in my hand, glowing with the latent power. A drop of blood in the chalice, a drop of blood on my fingertip. Through our marriage, I shared Eric's blood. Blood I'd already used once to alter a spell. I might not be the adept, but my marriage linked me to a different sort of magic, and the curse hadn't been Tatiana's alone. It had also been mine. I drew a knife from my wrist sheath. In sharp motion, I slashed it across my palm. Parting the golden lines of our wedding night, blood flowed immediately, spattering onto the floor. I ran my hand across the crown, painting it red, and I lifted it high. By the royal blood I share through our marriage vows, I crown you King of Gildheim. I brought the crown down on Eric's head. The entire courtroom froze, as if the castle were holding its breath. And then the world exploded into a bright, blazing light. He turned back into a human. It worked. He's alive. He's human. She reversed the curse, but that also means that he is naked. He is a naked man in the middle of a fight with a bunch of drama happening around him. And so he says, as my first order of king, he said to the room at large, I command someone to bring me a set of clothes, something suitable for a coronation, please. And shoes, I added, and shoes. And while I'm waiting, Eric turned back to me and cupped my face in his hands. His fingers traced my mouth, following the curve of my lips as if they were more precious than any crown. While I'm waiting, Eric whispered, for my ears alone, I'm gonna kiss my wife. And as certain as a vow, he did just that. So that's cool. Do I care about anything else that happens right now? I don't think I do. So in chapter 36, he's a human, he's a man, everything's great. Everything is Gucci. He's alive, he wore the crown, she was here beside him. The reign of the new crown, the new king has begun. They love each other very much. Her sister is still visiting, and there's a realization that her sister and Maria are really hitting it off. And she asks if Maria likes women, and she says, yeah, duh, bestie. And so they end up like flirting together. it's a really, I believe this is like set up for the next book in the series, maybe. I believe this is referred to as a series in the book itself, even though, or like in the book description, even though this is the first in it and nothing else has been written yet. I believe the intention is for this to be like a whole shindig. So yeah, they're cool. They hit it off. She offers her sister the position to be the ambassador for Demaria, so her sister can stay at the castle, so they can continue having like their very close sisterly relationship, and Tatiana can pursue a relationship with Maria, who will obviously continue to be the king's guard. So that's cool, very sweet, very awesome. Now the sisters will be able to build their relationship outside of the purview of their parents and hopefully be closer. And then obviously, now that they know the truth of everything that happened, and now they have the knowledge of everything happening in Demaria, they will be able to write or agree to like an accurate treaty, or like a treaty that is like beneficial for both of the countries now, which is cool. I'm still not sure exactly who wrote the treaty, or if it was like in collaboration between all of them and Varen, or like what exactly the story was. Couldn't necessarily tell you. And so in chapter 37, it all closes out with the idea that they go to bed at night. The next day is going to be the like trial and execution of Varen, but she convinced him to not make it an execution. She was like, hey, you know, you should just exile him. Like, give him the little cup thing that we talked about, the whole 7 leagues thing, and make him like be banished into like the distance of the realm, make him go do something else, but like don't kill him off. I'm not comfortable with that. And then also, you know, let's get married and have a good time and everything will be awesome. Okay, so they come to that agreement. They go to sleep that night, and she wakes up in the middle of the night hearing some rustling, hearing someone in their bedroom with them. She realizes that it's Julieta, homegirl that's been missing since their wedding night. So she says, Julieta? Pulls her into the bathroom. The two of them have a discussion, and it turns out that Julieta was the assassin. That's it. Girl, what? So Julieta, the only reason that she agreed to ever come to Gildheim was under the direction of the parents. She was directed and sent here to kill off the king, not realizing that Bianca was going to fight back so hard. But she's like, I was never going to hurt you. Don't worry. Like, I loved you so much. And I think she got blackmailed into doing it or something. Like, something bad happened where she's like, I would never do this and I would never hurt a fly, but I had to and I didn't have a choice, and they were going to hurt you and kill you if I didn't do it, and I didn't think that they were going to blame you, and blah, 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 blah. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. So Julieta was the assassin, confesses to it, apologizes, and she's just going to like disappear into the night. But instead, Bianca says, no, Julieta, I understand. And I love you, and I know that you would never hurt me, and you're like a mother figure to me, and I want you to stay. You try to kill my husband. You're dead to me, woman. What do you mean? But she says, it's okay, I understand. And so now Julieta's going to stay. And then the next day they wake up. It's about to be the whole exile thing for Lord Varen. Instead, it gets interrupted in the middle of it somehow. He's able to grab the spittoon 7 league chalice spittoon transporter device, and then he starts like taking a step, so he'll like disappear like 7 leagues distance away. So he just like escapes and disappears. So I guess he's gone now. But Tatiana leans over and she says, you think he realized he was aiming for the sea? What happens then? If you take a step with that into the sea, are you just like dead? Because now you're 7 leagues into the fucking ocean. Does a swim, like paddling, does that count as a step? Does it have to be on land? What's the properties of this whole like magical teleportation device? Is he gone? I don't know. So after this, Eric, I guess, kind of just accepts the fact that his brother's like basically dead now and kind of came to his own demise, and he instead says, hey Bianca, like while we're out here in this like beautiful garden area, you want to come with me for a second? Walks her into this like beautiful garden, and he says, Bianca Liliana, flower of Demaria, will you choose me as your husband as I choose you to be my wife? Because he never got to ask her properly. Now, I was smiling so hard it threatened to hurt. Eric of Gildheim, did you just propose to me with the same locket that turned you into a horse? His mouth quirked into a wry smile. You haven't given me an answer. I plucked the locket from his hand and I closed the distance between us with a single step. I hooked my arms around his neck and pressed my brow to his, looking into his eyes. Yes, I said simply, I choose you with all of my heart. Choosing what I wanted was a risk. Discarding my armor and revealing my heart was a danger. But as Eric kissed me in the spring sunshine, I was finally ready to be brave. I would no longer take the safe road that behooved me, but run instead along whichever path led to the man I loved. It was worth the risk, for now and always. The end. And there is no epilogue, so we're not missing anything, guys. There is the author's note in which she talks about Marina, which is the M. Stevenson, the author. She talks about the whole celiac disease. And so she says, Bianca's condition represents some of the symptoms of celiac disease. As a child, I devoured fantasy novels, but always in the back of my head was the knowledge that someone like me had no place in those books, where I wouldn't be able to survive on the classic fantasy fare of bread and cheese, and no one would have the words to understand what was making me sick. So much of traditional fantasy implicitly tells us that people with disabilities, invisible and otherwise, don't belong. And as an adult, I thought, but what if they did? And behooved, I wanted to show a fantasy heroine who had symptoms like me, and who still gets to have an epic adventure and a happy ending. Disabled people belong in fantasy just as much as we belong in the real world. If you see anything of yourself in Bianca, I hope this book brings you some measure of joy. Which I think is incredibly beautiful, and that sentiment alone gave this book a star. I think, obviously, it is incredibly important to recognize people with disabilities, both in like modern literature and if we're going to go down this whole like romantasy and fantasy pathway. The acknowledgement of not only people with disabilities, but minorities and like queer folk in general. All of those people exist. All of those people have a right to exist. All of those people, whether you acknowledge it or not, do in fact exist in this world and deserve a level of representation in media, in this world. Who would have thought that we would be in a position where the idea of basic human rights and humanity and treating your neighbor as a fellow human being would be a controversial and hot take, but apparently we are at that point in the universe. Not sure how we got there. Obviously don't agree with it. And so it was very, very nice to see acknowledgement of a group that is not normally recognized and represented in these types of books. And obviously, I really hope to continue to find books that speak to that and represent people who are not normally represented and provide voices and acknowledgement and perspective to things that people don't necessarily get or see all of the time. I think that is critically important. I think it's critically important for you to read books from positions that you don't understand, and to read perspectives and characters and whoever that you don't relate to. I think there is that is the purpose of literature, in my opinion. I think that is the purpose of storytelling, is to understand the perspectives of other people and to relate to it and to understand people outside of your own brain. And if all you do is surround yourself by people who are you or are adjacent to the type of human being that you are, you're doing yourself a disservice and you're doing the world a disservice by like forcing and cornering yourself into a particular echo chamber. I think it's very important to put yourself into awkward positions. I think it's very important to question your position of where you're coming from, obviously your privilege, your socioeconomic standing and understanding of the world, and to give yourself a different perspective of everything that's happening and to question everything. Come at everything with a critical eye. And I know we just went sideways on a book literally about a guy that turns into a horse, but it is, and obviously not only that. So not only are we reading a book about a guy that turns into a horse, but this is a channel in general that reads like monster romance and I'm over here cracking jokes, but just like at the very end of this video, I want to acknowledge the importance in some of the like underlying messaging that comes with reading romance genres of this type. Is it's not the monster. It is the fact of having a main character who is typically not the like traditional like desirable. It's not this like, that's not necessarily the right word either. It's not the idea of like a monster, quote unquote, but it is the general feeling and idea of being somebody who is not necessarily the like stereotypical cookie cutter what a romance is. I don't relate to traditional cookie cutter romance for a number of reasons, right? Be it my like sexuality, be it the trauma that I faced as I was growing up, my socioeconomic background that I had when I was growing up, general experiences, XYZ. Traditional romance just like doesn't do it for me for like one reason or another that is like of my own personal journey to unpack. And I feel like people who enjoy these like types of monster romances, or even not romantasy, which is where this book falls into, but if you're one of my audience members and if you're watching to this point, you also didn't watch this video expecting this to be a romantasy. Like you fully expected this to be a monster romance. And so like I'm talking to you right now. And so there is a level of relatability to a main character that maybe falls outside of like the norm, right? So not only everything that I just listed, but also in terms of like neurodivergency or like mental health issues, trauma, sexuality, race. Clearly, again, I'm a white lady. I can't speak necessarily to that aspect, but I can speak to all the others where I have never felt so seen in books as I do in monster romances or in like dark romances in general, because there's like that level of taboo and that level of feeling different and feeling outcast is something that I haven't seen explored in traditional romance for one reason or another. And I don't know if it's like palatability. I don't know if it's likability of a character that like you just can't necessarily have that in a traditional romance. I don't know what the reasoning is. I just know that I find the romance in monster romances to be significantly more like sweet and genuine. I find the female main characters in monster romances, in dark romances, in these non-traditional ones, there's a level that I have just always found that I related so much more to when it wasn't traditional romance publishing. I have always needed and sought after something different, because it just felt more to me. And I don't think I can really say it more than that. I don't think I can really put any more words to it than that. If you know, you know, I guess. So I don't know, man. Life's crazy. The world's crazy. This book was okay. Like I said, there were parts of it that I really, really loved, that I really, really enjoyed, and there was a lot of potential, but the pacing was weird. The pacing was absolutely crazy. It was repetitive to the point of being annoying in certain aspects of it that, like, again, I don't mean any offense by it, but you can tell that this is like very, very early writing for this author, or that this is like a like debut solo novel of theirs. And I just wish that they had like a genuine editor or a genuine publisher that was able to give them such critiques. And I was, but I was happy with it. It was not what I expected. It was not what I expected it to be at all. I hope you enjoyed it though. I hope you enjoyed this review, and obviously if you're interested, I hope that you read it on your own time. It's always my idea. This goes back to the whole thing of like critical thinking, and I hope that all of you don't know what if anything that I said was true. I could have just made up this entire book. You have no idea if whatever I said was true. So don't take what you watch on the internet as gospel, which I feel like I shouldn't need to say, but you know, just if you want to read it, if any of it sounded interesting, I hope that you go and read it for yourself and figure out if you actually liked it or not. Don't listen to me. Don't agree with my opinion. I'm a fucking nobody on the internet, you know? Anyway, I love you guys so much. That's all I got. And I will see you next week with whatever the heck I end up putting up. Okay, I appreciate you so much. As always, like, comment, subscribe. The videos are up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts now, so make sure you go and check them out over there. Listen, rate, do all the fun stuff. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Bye.